and we're going to assume that it is working. Okay, in this video, in this stream, in this live, if you end up watching this later, awesome. If you're here now, which I'm here, which is all that matters. So basically what I want to talk about is this scene from Gon, from Hunter x Hunter, where Gon versus Shizuku. I don't know how to say that exactly, but I want to talk about a certain scene that Gon was talking about. And the sad part about this is, like, I already kind of recorded this whole thing and found out that it wasn't recording, so I decided to do like a nice little live stream for you instead. So if you want to ask questions, you can ask questions, and I'll be able to answer them live while we're talking and chatting right now. So basically, let's just jump right on in. So this is the first part. Is like, he looks tired and he's sweating hard from what he's doing, but it's just like, that's only the perception that this guy and all these other guys have. Where it's like, for Gon, he's like, this is what I want to talk about. For one, he feels bad for tricking everybody, but it's like, he's not really tricking everybody. He's just using the skills and assets that he himself already has. So it's just like, he's not tricking anybody. All he's really doing is just providing, like, using his skills to the best of his advantage, which is something I've been working through myself as well too. And this is the funny part. So like, the one dude thought he was getting tired and was like exhausted, and this is something that you're going to come to realize as you start to progress in, like, maybe your career in life and just overall well-being, is that, like, the thing is like, he says he's breaking out in a cold sweat because he felt guilty from the idea of making so much money so easily. And that's the aspect that I want to talk about highly in this, is like how I have felt guilty in the past for making money so easily, because like, I always had these perceptions that, like, you had to work hard. Like, well, here, we'll do it this way. So I always had this perception that it's like, more hours worked equaled more, and we're actually going to do it this way, equaled more money. Where in actuality, you can work less hours, which this is the crazy part, and why you'll need to stick through and make even more money than you've ever made beforehand, because it's about the type of person that you're serving and the amount of value that you're bringing to that said, like, individual. Because like, when I first started, like, I was making $36,000 a year, $36K a year, which comes out to about $3,000 a month, and I was having to work 9 hours a day, which is crazy. And then when I picked up sales and I started getting back into sales after college, like, I was working 2 to 4 hours a day, and I was making right around, like, when I first started, I was making, it was like 5 to 6-ish a month, 5 to 6K a month, which I was like, this is crazy. And all I was doing was, I was just making phone calls basically. And I guess it wasn't 5 to 6K when I first started. It was more like an additional like 1,500 on my original base of like 50K or something like that. 50K. So like, if you do the math on that, let's say we're at 50, actually let's do it this way. So we have 1,200, I mean, times that by 12 per month, so an extra 14. So like, you times that by 12, you get 14400, and then you add that to the 50, so at making $64,000 a year doing sales to start out. So we add 50, so like, let's do 64, and you divide that by 12. So yeah, I was making, so I know this is how you actually do a divide. So I was making 5,000, we'll just round it up to 54. I know it's actually 5333 repeating, but basically, this is what I was making when I first started doing sales, and I was working only 2 to 4 hours a day compared to like me working 9 hours a day. So I felt guilty, like how Gon did. I do see somebody did jump into chat. I don't have my chat window open right now. Hold on. Where is that at? How do I do this, dude? I'm so new to this stuff. Hey, Lord, what's going on, man? I just wanted to talk about this. It's been an issue thing, conflict of interest within my own mind. So I'm just kind of sharing some information for you if you're wanting to make more money, and kind of using Gon as like a reference around how you can do this said thing. Just because like, I understand that maybe there's a lot of other people out there that are wanting to make money or wanting to have like some sort of influence. And I mean, as you've probably been able to gather from other videos that I made, is like you have Gon and other anime characters that are just direct reflections of ourselves. So as I was saying though, it's just like from doing this, from working 2 to 4 hours a day, I increased my income, almost doubled my income, and decreased the amount of hours that I was working per day. And that just, it blew my mind, because it's like this, to me, I was doing like editing, and it's just like it wasn't a very high value skill, which was the sad part. It's like I wanted this to be a high value. I figured it was a high value, but it's just like it also wasn't at the same time. So it's just like this same principle also applies to like teachers, other people in certain trades, other people around the world, whatever it may be, is like they can have like they're increasing like the education of people. So like teachers is one. Like they could be making a lot more, but they are only capped at around like 45 to like 50K a year, which is like how can a teacher survive on that? They're developing the minds of other people. Whereas then we look at like athletes who are making, let's say, 1.2 mil a year or something like that. But it's just like, are they really contributing to society like teachers do? And it's like, no, but like they don't feel guilty for making money so easily, because what they're doing is like this is something that I didn't understand for a little while. Is like these athletes, what they're doing is they have trained for like 10 to 15 years honing their craft, and they decided to do something more valuable. Whereas like teachers, I'm not saying and discrediting teachers by any means, but it's like they also did study for like, let's say 5 years or so. And if they study for if they study for 5 years, it's like, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just like, that's what they ended up doing. And it's just this whole, it's challenging, bro. It's really challenging, because like Gon, he has these skills, he has these traits that like all of these other people right here do not have. So like these people, they don't have the same skills as Gon does. But like Gon, he feels guilty for like using his strength and his God-given gift to be able to beat all of these people in an arm wrestling competition. But it's like at the end of the day, they're the ones that are deciding to pay to go to Gon to be able to win, because they want to be the person that can have bragging rights. Can have bragging rights to be like, I beat this dude that has already beaten 100 other people. And it's just like the decision comes down to them at the end of the day, how they want to spend their money, what they find value in, what they want to exchange their service, or like their what maybe he values more, like Gon, like myself, is like he values cash right now at this point in time, because they needed to be able to have money to be able to go to said place. Whereas these other people, they valued being able to beat Gon in the first place. And it's just like, okay, well, if that's what they do, like he's just providing a skill and a service to be able to do that. So he has no reason or rhyme like to have to be breaking out into a cold sweat and like feeling guilty for like making money in such an easy way. And this is something that I myself have realized, and why it was like so challenging for me, because like I have this skill, like I'm just a salesman at heart. I love talking with people. I love selling. It's absolutely fantastic. And that's why like when I first started getting back into sales after I did it back after college, was like my first month, like the goal was 193, 195, like within the first 9 days. And I was like, okay, well, I started halfway through the month and I got 118. I was like, okay, that's fantastic. And I got an extra $995. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is what I get from like using my words and talking. And then the next month, too shy of like being at 150%, 1,600, 300, like $1,600 basically. And then every month after that, it was 1,650, 1,650, 1,650, like on cue. And this was right around the time when they were like going to be giving me a promotion and was going to be like moving me forward. And they just kept postponing it. Like within the third or fourth month, they're like, yeah, we want to move you up to the next year. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. So I did this, and then it didn't happen. So I was like, you know what, screw you guys. Like, I don't have to work here. I don't have to do this type of thing. So like I ended up cutting my numbers back, and maybe it's a little petty, but it's like I cut my numbers back to be able to drop down to something. And then as soon as they're like, hey, the position's yours, but like we can't have you dropping off. So then that's why the next month I went out and did the exact same thing. But the crazy part about this was like I was only working 3 to 4 hours, making 100 dials a day and sending emails. Like that was it. And I was making this much money. Whereas like before, when I was doing the video work, like 9 hours a day, making $36,000 a year with no room for improvement or the amount of effort that I put in. And I was like, this is just, it just did not compute to me by any means. So then the following month, like I was then making around 60 to 80 calls this or so. And now all of a sudden I'm making like 1,600, almost $2,000, almost 2,200, like 1,300 or so. Like I was making so much more, and I was closing these larger deals by making even less calls. And I was like, this just does not make sense to me. Like I felt guilty for like having this skill set that very few people ended up having. Like I ended up even winning like this competition for these other people that had also been there. And I was able to drive, this is a very poor sports car, but I was able to drive like a sports car, which I found out, dude, like driving nice things and having nice things, like it doesn't really determine anybody's self-worth or like any sort of like meaning whatsoever. All it really does is just like, it's cool. It's a vanity metric, but it doesn't like change anything. And I've realized this on my run last night. Like when I was running, like all I was doing was like, it just looks like this. It's just an empty road. Like there's nothing there. It's just like, what do I want to keep doing like every single day to help me get to that destination that I want to get to? And that's why this is the hardest part for me, is because like when I started realizing that all I have to do is just sell like and provide value to higher individuals and hire like niches, whatever words you want to use, like just hire business owners, like all of a sudden my income, it just shot up. Like I was able to close like larger accounts that were within like the 6-figure range and bring this much money into like the business. So like one of the months I sold $720,000 worth of goods, and I only got paid, and I say only, like I know I don't need to say only, but like I got $9,737.67 off of that like one deal, and I ended up making $10,000 in a month. And I was only making around like maybe 30, 40 calls a day or so. And I have all of my stats right here with the phone calls. So it's just like I was making 1,400 calls in a month, 1,400, like 15, but like the month where I made the most, like I only talked with 51 people, and I only engaged, like talked with the fees and like the process was 78. And it's just like I was able to make $720,000 worth in sales, and yet I felt guilty for doing that said thing. Kind of like how Gone was like, I feel guilty at the idea of making money so easily. And it's just like, it's not that I am like a bad person by any means. At least I don't believe I am. And I was journaling about that this morning too. Is like, I'm not a bad person for making money easily. Like the information, the skills are out there. It's just you have to go find somebody such as myself or maybe somebody else out there that is like more qualified or has the skill set to be able to help you increase your income if that's the thing that you want to do. Like if that's the thing that you value. And there's this quadrant that I'd recommend you trying if like you are wanting to like have more income or more money or like figure it out. So it's called this motivational quadrant. And basically you want to figure out, wow, if I can write, you want to figure out your values. And then you also want to figure out like your duty to others, and these are like inherently yours. And then there's your desires and your shoulds, and these come from the outside. So like outside, so like these could be like parental figures, friends, family members, like anybody like that. Whereas like values is like, what do you care about? Your duty is like, how are you going to be providing back to other people? What's up, Overlord T Lover? How you doing, man? This is a little bit different video from some of the other anime stuff, but basically to give you a little synopsis, kind of talked about it a little bit, but like I'm covering like how Gon felt difficult, like he felt guilty basically for making money in such an easy term, because I figure like I watch anime, you watch anime, if we both watch anime, in all likelihood maybe you're also wanting to increase your income by doing less work. And it's just something that I myself have found like to be useful. In the age, you can go back to the beginning of the live and watch everything else. But like, if you have questions, more than happy to answer them. So basically, it's just like understanding what you value, what your duty is, or your responsibility to like the other people around you, your family, friends, whoever you find like worthy in your life, like providing that information to them. Your desires are outside of you. So like I had a desire that I wanted to drive a sports car. I drove the sports car and I found out like, okay, it doesn't provide me any sort of extra additional value. It's nice, it's cool, like it's awesome. Like obviously I want more of that, but it's just like I felt guilty for wanting those things because it's just like I felt like I was taking away from other people. But it's like I was saying here with Gone, is like he also felt guilty and like he was breaking out in a cold sweat because he felt wrong for doing the thing that like he himself was inherently gifted with. Because like for all we know, and this is the thing that I've distracted myself from as well too from the past, is like, so Gone, let's say he started at 8 years old when he was training. I don't know the exact years and time frame, like maybe Overlord or Lord, maybe one of you guys know. But it's just like at 8 years, he, let's say, started training, and he trained for 4+ years to be able to become a hunter, because that's all his dream ever was. So like he has 4 years of experience, whereas like all these other hunters that are like older than him, whatever it may be, like they started a lot later in life. And this is something that I came to realize too, like after talking with the dude that did handstands at the gym. He said he started training handstands at like 28 or so, and he's 32. So it's like we all have this different like time frame of when we need to be at a specific place at a specific time. But too often it's like we get distracted with like other people's beings of wherever they're at in their world and their life, and it's just like that's not how this whole ecosystem works. Like the big thing is like you have to start where you are, and why it's so important to understand like your values, your duty, your responsibility to others. What is your desires versus like what are shoulds? And shoulds are it's a whole can of worms, dude. Like there's so much that goes into shoulds, but it's like before it was like, oh, I should be making calls, but now it's like I like making calls. I enjoy talking with people. I enjoy having these conversations. I enjoy helping you out and helping you answer questions or ideas that maybe you have within your own mind that you're like, okay, well, do I want to make a lot of money? Do I not want to make a lot of money? How many hours do I want to work? Do I want to work this much? Do I not want to work this much? Like, do I have to feel guilty if I'm beating all these other people at the skill that I have? Because some individuals may think that like God is scamming these people because he's using this thing, but it's like also these people didn't ask questions. Like the people didn't ask questions to understand where God was coming from. And like if you aren't asking questions, it's like what's the point? And like you like okay. So I've struggled with this as well myself, and it's just like we always judge JUDGE before, like we always judge before we actually end up like coming over and helping, like in knowing what that person's doing. I know I've been guilty of this. Like you can't condemn other people from like what they do and how they do it. And this was talked about in the book Psycho-Cybernetics that I ended up reading, read it a couple of times, not all the way through reading it, listened to it, and just there's this concept that I wanted to share is like a lot of the times when like I've failed and maybe I've like had certain scenarios in my life where it's like these to me is like successful accomplishments, but like to other people they might not necessarily be a successful accomplishment. They may just be like some sort of vanity metric, or some people may be like, oh, you're just trying to prove something, but it's like I don't have anything to prove. Like I know what I can do, and I know if I can do this, you guys can do this exact same thing, and that's why I share these things. It's not to make you envious or like what's the other word? It's not to make you just like envious. We'll just keep it with envious. Like it's more to inspire you of like, hey, if you want to make money, if you want to develop the skills, like this is what happens when you have a skill of like communication and like being able to understand like body language and like self-acceptance and all these different like great self like conceptions that maybe you didn't originally have. It's just like sometimes you may feel guilty because it's like I felt like I was taking certain things away from other people. But I've come to realize it's like I'm not taking these things away from anybody, because anybody can go out and develop these said skills. Like I went out and I developed these said skills. I went out and I learned and I studied and I meditated and I journaled and like I've gone through a lot of work. So it's like there's a quote by I don't think it's Zig Ziglar, but it's like the quote goes like when you do more than you're paid to do, eventually you'll get paid for more than you do. And that's something that I guess I've always internalized and I like doing, because it's just I might as well. And that's why it's like being able to focus on like previous successes that like I have had. So like when I had a month of like 10K, like did it make me feel any different from like when I made like a month of like 1,600? In all honesty, no, it was the exact same. Like making 1,600 a month compared to like 10,000 a month. Like, did my life really change all that much? No, my life stayed basically the same. Like, sure, I got to eat more food or something like that, but I always had this fear of like, well, am I going to lose all of this? Like, I just don't want to. And it's crazy, man. Like, Overlord gets it. It's just like, the feeling remains the same on whether or not I'm impacting 100 people or I'm impacting one person, if I'm making $10,000 a month or if I'm making $3,000 a month. I took off 3 months, well, 6 months, I guess, where it's like I didn't have any income come in because I felt so like ashamed that I could have been doing this for the past 4 years at this point, basically, if I would have just like ended up going into sales instead of staying in the government job. But I ended up staying where I was comfortable because I was like, this is easy, like this is simple. But it's just like I've come to realize that the money, it's not going to bring any sort of additional happiness, but it does kind of bring a lot of freedom. And like I guess, peace of mind, but it's just like, I don't have to have these things. Do I want a nicer bike? I do lots of biking. Do I want to have like a nicer car? Sure. But like, is it going to really change me personally? No. And that's why like what I've been trying to focus on more lately after reading this passage, and I'll read it to you really quick as well too, is like systematically, it's from Psycho-Cybernetics, page 138. So it's like, if we will systematically relive our brave moments in memory, he said, we will be surprised to see we have more courage than we thought we did. Like, I didn't originally think that I had courage, and that's why it's like another part from Psycho-Cybernetics is when we ask previous success, I get sometimes too fast. When asked about previous success, some people draw a blank. They literally cannot think of any. I used to be afraid of the opinions of people were lying, practicing the cunning art of self-deception and fooling no one. Some people's success were not perceived as their own. For instance, when asking if becoming a doctor was a success of one MD said that his parents wanted him to become a doctor, so he achieved their goal, not his. Another man who built his own home didn't view this as a success. A woman who got straight A's in school didn't see this as a success because she was expected to get them. However, when one changed the word success to happy moments, brave moments, or good times, these same people could recall their successful experiences. They remembered hitting a home run, winning a tennis match, shooting a duck while hunting, and hearing friends exclaim, "Great shot." Just as goals can be seen as projects, success expressions can also be called happy moments or something similar. Yeah, dude. I mean, those in power, they are afraid to lose it. And that's why it's just like, I don't think I was ever like, okay. So Lord, I'm going to get to that here in 1 second. Like, just give me 2 seconds to finish this other thought. And then I do want to touch on that. So it's just like, basically, being able to identify previous successes or previous like success feelings. Like when I was able to drive the nice car, it was a Ferrari. Like I felt happy and joyous, and I was like, this is what happens when like the hard work and the work that I put in pays off. Like I didn't care about the outcome. Like the outcome of me driving was just an added benefit. I just loved being able to make the calls and talk with people. Like that's what I loved doing, was like calls and problem solving. Like problem solving. That is exactly what I loved doing. So that's what I ended up doing, and I was rewarded heftily for doing the problem solving that I enjoyed doing by having conversations. And then it's just the whole thing of like being able to realize past successes and like past experiences that we originally have had within our own mind, that it takes some time to overcome those things. And that's why like when I look at Gon, it's just like he was able to be strong. And this part as well too is where like he, after arm wrestling with Kizuru, like you see him struggling a little bit. He's struggling or so. And then Kill comes in, and he just kind of looks over there. Like, God, he's struggling. And when he says that, was that your full strength? And Gon's like, yeah, this was my full strength. It's just like, sometimes depending on the opponent, you have to use different levels of strengths. But it's like, you don't have to give your full level or your full like strength at every single time. I just did air quotes. Every single time, like you're up against like maybe one of these quote unquote weaker people. They aren't weaker people, like their hard is just different from like her hard or his hard. And that's what was talked about in this movie that I watched, documentary. I highly recommend you watch it. It's called The 50-50-50. It's on Amazon Prime if you have it. It's with the Iron Cowboy, where the dude does 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. And an Ironman, if you aren't aware, is 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, which I've only ever done 74 miles on my bike, and that's just like a whole struggle in itself. And then a marathon run, which is 26.2 miles. So it's like he did 50 of those in 50 days in 50 states, which is absolutely insane. But like his hard was different from like Leo Owens. I haven't watched Hunter in a minute, but Leo's hard, like Kill's hard, or like Gon's hard, or whatever it may be. But it's just like we all have different hards, and that's why like sometimes you do have to be willing to like use your full strength against different opponents, because like everybody's gonna require different levels of skills. So like when I was doing the sales as well too, is like there were certain times and certain periods within like my sales career where it's like when I was competing for something because I wanted to win this belt, which I never ended up getting a photo of the belt, which is still a little frustrating to me, but like that's just, it had to happen, because otherwise, like as Lord was saying, it's just like those in power are afraid to lose it. And like those who are in power that are afraid to lose it, like I had all this quote unquote power of being like a successful like salesman, and I am still a successful salesman. Like I just love selling. Like I'm still a success, just maybe not on the different means. But it's just like there was these people, like these thoughts that like I was afraid of losing this, but I was like, you know what, I'm willing to lose everything that I have in order to pursue something that is more meaningful for myself, even if that means that I have to take a step back from like having this decent income, this comfortable living, this comfortable lifestyle. I decided to take a step back and actually pursue something that I was more passionate about, or try and figure out like, am I really passionate about this? And it was just like this whole perception that I believed that I was talking about earlier, where it's just like you have to work more hours to make more money, was just like thrown down on its head. It's like people were willing to give, and the crazy part about like the thing that I was selling was like it was monthly recurring revenue. So every single month, these people were paying like a certain percentage for the money that they were having come in to their account every single month. And I was just like, that's just insane that people are willing to pay basically hundreds of thousands of dollars a month just to solve this one problem. And I was like, well, if people are willing to pay that, why am I getting such a small percentage off of these large deals that I'm closing? Why not what if I go off and do this exact same thing, but like do it on my terms, create my own system, create my own value, and provide something that's different to everybody else? But it's like, I had felt guilty for doing that, because it's just like, why would somebody want to pay me $8,000 per month or something like that to be able to go off and do this said thing? And that's why it's like, I was willing to give up my power. I was willing to give up my prestige, my accolades. I was willing to give that up to be able to go off and like do something that I myself found joy and passion in. But very few people are willing to go do that thing. Like I was like, am I really leaving a 6-figure job to go make YouTube videos and like do my own business where I have like no clients? I have no expertise. Like, well, I have an expertise, but it's like, am I really willing to go off and do this thing that I've never done beforehand? And I was like, yeah, you know what? Because I have all this proof and this like backing that has like given me success, and like proof that's like, I don't have to be working that hard. Like when I was making these calls, so like when I had my most exciting month or biggest month where I made like the 720,000 and then the 716, like these 2 months, the crazy part is like, I guess I was just on fire basically. There's some other things that played into it as well too, but more or less it was just like I was having, and I appreciate that, Lord. And I'm not saying this to like brag or gloat, or like, it's just more like, this is what I have been able to do. And it's just like, if you want to do more than what you're doing right now, you can. It's just a matter of like figuring out what skills like you have and what service like you can offer. And that's what I've realized is like, when I just talked with like these people, and I only had to close, like I talked with them 78 times. And I found out that like, if I just talk to higher people that are making more money, businesses that make more money, I can in return also make more money as well too, because I'm just providing a higher service of value to them that is solving more of their problems. And like, I could feel guilty for that, and I had felt guilty for that, but it's also like, where's that guilt coming from? And it was due to me having a belief that like, you have to work hard to make money. But it's like, if you just use your skills in the right way, you can leverage that in the correct way. And there's Archimedes, I believe, is the philosopher, if I'm remembering correctly. But like, basically what he said is like, if you give him a lever large enough, he can move the world. So like, basically, so like here, so like, it's a lot easier to move this. Like this lever, if I tried pulling down on this would not move up. But if it was the other way around, so like if we had a lever that looks like this, so we have nice shortish one, longer, make this, wow, what did I just do? You can see all this other stuff that I've been working on. Basically, so if we have this one, I'm still fairly new at this. So like, if we have a longer lever on this side, and you can think of teeter-totter or whatever it may be, like if we stand here, like we have a lot more leverage over here, depending on how large this is and how small this one is over here. So like if we decrease the size of this one, nope, well, didn't mean to erase that whole thing, but so if we decrease that size, so it's like, it's a lot easier for me now. Like if I put on weight, this is gonna move a lot quicker. And I didn't understand this concept until I ended up getting into sales. So it's just like, I don't feel like any of us have to feel guilty if we're making a lot of money, or if we're like having dreams or whatever it may be, because all it is like, we have just acquired the skills. Like I was saying here, is like, Gone, he started at 8 and trained for 4+ years. But too often we look at where people are at like right now compared to where like they're wanting to be. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have any questions, ideas, suggestions, whatever it may be, but I guess it's just like a matter of me understanding that like when I was doing these sales, and if we add up these average numbers, like I was closing $430,000 on average of sales per month. And obviously the product was good, but like that's what I've been working on over here is like being able to create like a value proposition for other people, for this other girl that I'm helping out, and then being able to profit off of it. But it's like I don't have to feel guilty, I guess, for doing like and using my skills that I've been given, just as like maybe you don't have to also feel guilty for using the skills that you have given, because like you've been able to identify your values, where your duties are, like understand that like your shoulds aren't things that like you should be doing. Like I shouldn't have to like do XYZ thing. Prime example is like maybe going to the gym. It's like I should go to the gym, but it's like you don't have to go to the gym. It's like I should make calls, but it's like you don't have to make calls if you don't want to. Like I should make more money, but it's like you don't have to if you don't want to. But like that's why it's like a matter of understanding like where your shoulds, like so like I should call businesses and I should make money or something like that. But it's like, how can I change that should into like a duty? It's like, okay, well, if I have more money, I can help my mom out, or I can help my sisters out, or I can help other family members out, or I can feel more fulfilled and like being able to share this money and this wealth. Because like in spirituality, there's this whole thing where it's like, and I'm going to get to you here in 1 second, Overlord. There's this whole aspect where it's like money is just a direct expression of love. So let me write this down. Money is just a direct expression of, we're going to draw a heart, of love. And it's like, it's why I love, that's such a bad heart. But it's like, I just love like talking with people. And in return, like I am paid very handsomely for talking to people. So I've been trying to do more lives, and I've been dreaming about lives, because I think that this is a much more like personal connection, because like I get the one-on-one feedback from like you guys that are watching compared to like me just recording the video and you watching it a little bit later. I know maybe it's not the best, like me not having live streams, but that's just something that I've been like reflecting on. And I don't have to feel guilty if I'm making $500,000 a year, if I'm making like 100K a month in profit or whatever it is. I know that these are hypothetical numbers. It's just like I know that these are things that I can do, and it's a matter of me starting with that first dollar, which is the thing that I'm working on. But that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Whatever you love, money will come to you if that is your driving desire. If that's not your driving desire like it is mine, then no worries. Like you would do what you need to do. So Overlord, T Lover, I honestly agree with the only part I do disagree with is how willing you are to hold on to power. The saying absolute power corrupts absolutely is a saying. Like look at politics where both parts would prefer painting over real issues rather than going over things we need to fix and focus on as a society. Which I do completely agree with that as well, dude. Like absolute power does corrupt absolutely. And I can't remember, I learned it in economics a while ago, and it's true, but it's also like too often, and this is something that I've come to realize, is like we look at these outside factors. So like we can look at absolute power corrupting absolutely, but then we can also look at like say Marcus Aurelius. He's a Stoic back in Greek times, where like his power, he was the emperor and he didn't corrupt. Like he ended up helping other people. He had multiple children of his die. Like he had all these other aspects that had happened to him, yet he ended up staying true to himself. So I don't believe so much that absolute power corrupts absolutely. I see it more as like it's in terms of how that individual is using the power. Because like I was journaling about that this morning, is like, why do I feel so guilty for wanting to have this income, for wanting like to not have income, or whatever it may be? Like, why do I feel so guilty if I do have power? And it's like, because there's certain beliefs that I had in the past where it's just like, oh, when people have money, like they're bad people. But then it's like, you can also look at other people where people that do have money are also very good. Like they donate to like, let's say charities. So like a prime example is like Mr. Beast. I have a feeling all of us know who Mr. Beast is. Like he's just basically runs YouTube, so I'm going to use him as an example. But it's like the dude, he makes millions of dollars, and there's always going to be people that are going to be like, well, he has absolute power, but it's like he hasn't been corrupted. Like he's still providing back to other people. Like he's building homes, he's donating like clothes. This is going to be a very poorly drawn t-shirt. That's supposed to be a t-shirt. But it's like he's donating like all these and then like cans of food or something like that. Like this is a can of food, so like he's donating these things to other people. So it's just like, this has been my misconception, what I've come to realize. And I've talked with other successful individuals that are making like 6 figures a month, or like they're making money, but it's just like, what they're doing is they're focusing more on themselves. And this is what I've been trying to convey, and what I do my best to convey, like on this channel and other channels that I have, is like, I want you guys to focus on like what you yourself can do. Like, how can I contribute in a positive way? Like, what are those main factors that I can focus on? Like, how can I maybe impact or like help society? Like, how can I change how other people are viewing it? I believe that like you have to have money in order to make change. Like, if you don't have money, like sure you can do nonprofits and you can do those things, but it's like, why not also benefit in the process? You know, like some people will think that that's bad, that that's not the right thing to do. But like for me personally, dude, like I just feel like it's better to use your strengths kind of like Gon does, to be able to like help inspire other people. Because like Gon, he needed the money to be able to go off and do these other things that he needed to, that he wanted to go do. Whereas like most people that I've come in contact with, they may not see it that way. They may see somebody, and this is just like, there's a book, it's called The Truth About Stories, I believe. And I might have talked about this in a different video that I did, but yeah, it's a small little story. Yeah, the truth about stories. We all tell stories of ourselves. Me, when I saw it was real, at first I thought the Mr. Beast situation was me, and when I saw it was real, dude, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's these people out there, but like the only thing that they, and this is just how we as society and how people work, is like, yeah, it's like people are always going to get upset for other people doing all these other like good things, and it's just like, it's because they're using their stories, they're using their maps, they're using what they have used and had previous experiences with, like say people that have like maybe like they grew up, and this is like how I kind of grew up as well too, is like having money, and this is what I was journaling about this morning, is like having money can lead to like maybe like a divorce. But it's like, that's also probably not like the main factor. And it's just like having money also can like help like cure the blind. It can also help like build homes. It can feed people. Like there's all these good things that money can do. It's just too often we associate the money that we see from other people from our own past experiences. So it's like, it could be family related. It could be all these different things. Invite is dead. Here, let me update that really quick and see if I can. I'm still new to this whole Discord thing, dude. So let me see if I can do that. And this is why I need mods or something like that. I don't know if mods are the right way to do it, but so if we do this, invite people, invite link for, have that never, generate new link, copy. See if I can put it in chat. Does that work? But yeah, basically, which I mean, if you want to, dude, more than happy to have you come on and we can have like an actual discussion, like one-on-one over this via Discord too. What's up? Awesome. Looks like that link did work. But it's just like the stories that we have and we convey it's just previous stories and experiences that ourselves has associated with in life. And that's the challenging part, dude, is like, that's all we can ever do. So what we can think is like, we can have this, which if you want to come in, Overlord, more than welcome to. Let me just finish this point and then you can come in and we can like, you can share your ideas and I can ask some questions around that as well too. So it's like, we have, this is going to be a map. So like, let's say we have an X right here and you're starting right here or something like that. So like we have this path right here, but it's like there's also this other path that like this other person could take to get to X, or there's like this other path, or there's like this path that like jigs, maybe even goes off the map and then comes back on and then goes back off and then comes up here and then goes down here, but like they still get to the destination. But it's just like the stories that they tell themselves, and I'm gonna do another video on this as well too. It's around this movie If, with John Krasinski ended up writing it, the guy from The Office, if you guys have ever watched that. But it's like, we have these stories and these maps and these perceptions, and that is what creates our reality. So it's like when we want to change our reality and not feel guilty, like I was saying, for like making a bunch of money or whatever it may be, like we have to be willing to take on different responsibilities around different like perceptions that we once believed to be true. But it's just like, all we can ever go off of is, like I was saying, is like those past experiences that we have had beforehand. So it's just, it's challenging. It's a battle that you have to fight within your own head and realize that, like, okay, do I feel bad? Like, am I having absolute power by having this money? Or is that just a story that I've been telling myself that, like, people that have money, that have abundance, that have like these quote unquote things that, like, maybe somebody once at one point in time has told me was like negative or wrong or bad or whatever it may be, like, is that only happening because of these past beliefs and these past stories that I have had around myself? Because, like, Gon, he felt guilty for making all this money, but it's like he didn't have to feel guilty because he was just using his inherent gifts that he was given from his dad and all these other people. But it's just like, that might not necessarily be the case. So it's just challenging, and it's something that, like, all we can ever do is, like, we can only ever work through our own scenarios and go off our own past experiences of, like, what we believe to be true. But that's why I believe it's so important to, like, write down, like, self-limiting beliefs that you have about, like, yourself or your life or your identity, or like what you believe to be true around, like, how money works or how money doesn't work, or like how anime has like influenced you, or how maybe you're addicted to it, or whatever it may be. Like, whatever story that you're telling yourself, like, you change the stories, you start to change your life too. So it's like, I was thinking about this, and maybe I already said this, like on my run, it's like I could condemn all these people for making, like, good money like myself, or like how they're making money, like I could condemn them, but like all I'm really doing in that process is condemning myself. So it's like, why would I do that? Like, why not just, like, be like, okay, hey, if this is how they're making an income, this is how they're making an income, and not judge them, like I was saying, and just, like, let them be as they are. Awesome. I think that's it, unless you guys got some questions or ideas or other things that are on your mind. I'm still trying to figure this whole thing out as much as all of you are. All I know is that, like, might as well stop running from who you are and just embrace, like, your strengths, your desires, and maybe not desires, but, like, more embrace your values, like how you're going to be using your duties to be able to help other people. Because, like, if you understand these processes and these structures and these, like, strategies, you can really get a lot more out of life. And that's my hope, is, like, as long as I'm helping you understand that, like, maybe you want to persuade, or maybe there's anime characters or something like that, like, you can use to your benefit to be able to, like, either make money if that's what you value. Like, maybe you value time. Like, you have to understand, like, where your values lie, because I can't say, like, this is your value, this is the thing that you need to have happen. All I can do is, like, provide the information that has worked for me, and maybe it'll work for you as well too. But, like, you have to be the one that has to go out into the world and, like, do this said, like, thing. And most of the time, like, some of my videos, it's just me, like, spitting out ideas to get them off of my head, because I don't have other people other than, like, you to talk to. So I'm like, I might as well talk to people that I find on the internet that we connect and resonate, maybe more than I resonate with people, like, in my own IRL life or something like that. And I just like doing that a lot more, just because, like, you guys seem to understand, want to be growing in the same process or way that I want to, and I'd rather share my ideas with you guys that are willing to, like, listen, compared to maybe other people that aren't. Cool. Yeah, any other questions, ideas, perspectives, other areas that maybe you don't agree with me 100%? Sleepy, I don't know if you want to come on and join. Exactly. Stretch the mental muscle. Like, that's, dude, the mental muscle, bro. Oh my goodness. That is, that's been a riot for me, man. Like, a lot of people that I know, like, and I used to believe that everybody did the things that I do. Like, I used to have this perception, this belief that, okay, everybody is doing what I am doing right now. And it's just like, yeah, if you don't have, hey, it's not so much to add. It's more of, like, what questions do you have? Like, or what are you going through in life? Like, do you feel guilty for certain things, or whatever it may be? Or, like, what goals do you have? Like, I'm happy to just chat down and have a conversation about that as well too. Doesn't even have to be around necessarily this, but it's just kind of, I was going off of, like, the guilt aspect, just because Gon felt guilty around doing what he did as a person and as a character. But I'm also just happy to have just, like, a conversation, because, like I was saying, I just find to have more of this stuff. So here, let's try and see if I can do this. I don't even know how we can do this. So if we come in, hold on, how do I do this? Do we have to do, I want this, right? View profile, send, is this right? I never know how this stuff works. I do like Discord a lot more than some other stuff though too. Could be considered a boomer at this point, but not so much. So I feel like if I do this and then come in here, right? And then we do a voice call. Is that how this works? And if I pop you over here?
Yeah, hey, what's up?
What's up, dude?
Yeah, no, it's nice to meet you. I wouldn't say I have an issue with like those with power. It's more that like society has kind of created this like it's the group that's the issue. Unironically, because people would say, oh, it's I'm sorry if I sound crazy, by the way.
No, dude, I sound crazy all the time, so I get it.
No. It's you have life experience and stuff, you see this stuff, but like from what I've been seeing, like not just the internet, but like news and stuff, we want to like accuse like all these different groups of people, but then we want to backtrack and say, oh, it's not the group, it's it's the individuals. But then we circle back and say it's the group. Like remember when you were talking about like money, right? Like we blame people with money, we blame the rich, I'm not going to use a controversial figure like Trump, but like let's say Mr. Beast, right? Like he was helping people who were blind, and because we're always like stereotyping these people like, oh, they want clout, they want money. Like, what the hell does he get out of it? Yeah, he gets a few views, but like the money he gets out of YouTube would like pale in comparison on the money he would have to be putting down for each of these people who are getting their like eyes fixed, or I don't know, like the wells he built in Africa. I think that was a video, right? I'm not a big fan of Mr. Beast, but like looking at this, it's like, well, like for me, for example, right? I always thought, okay, well, Mr. Beast seems like a guy who just wants to clout, right? But then, giving it some thought, it's like, what the hell does he really get out of it? Like, what do like philanthropists actually get out of it besides like, oh, well, we're helping people? And that's where like, and it's not just rich people. It's like people also want to accuse like yeah, the government's not that great. Like it's terrible sometimes. And I even talked about it in comments like, oh, like both parties hate each other, but they prefer holding on to that power and like painting like the real issues that we have to face to really fix our like country as like, oh, these are like minor issues. These aren't real. Like I forgot what the term is, but there's like a like, I'm sorry, like I haven't even given you a second to talk.
No, dude, sorry. You're good. You keep going. I'm waiting for you to finish, and you keep going, man. Like when I'm ready, like when you're ready, like I'll jump right on in. So you're doing great.
Like have you heard of, I forgot what the term is, but there's a term for like large companies where they would sometimes like have people like working on like, criminal stuff, but the thing, well, like this isn't like as common, I hope, but like they would have like these kind of like the guys on the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak, right? So, like work on criminal stuff, but then like whenever it gets back to like Walmart, let's use Walmart for an example, right? Like say a bunch of guys are like having chicken fights in like, I don't know, like the McDonald's, after hours, and then people like the police find out like, hey, stop having chicken fights in here. They're like, no, and then they get arrested. If it goes back to Walmart, they could just say, well, I don't know why they're accusing us of having this. Like, this was their own thing. These guys are the criminals. Why are they accusing us? But, like, it could be a thing. And I've heard somebody bring it up, and it's a weird term. Like, it has to exist if there's a term for it, right? Like, it's... I don't... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good, man. I was more just taking like a deep breath, just kind of like process everything. So it's just like, I don't know if there's an exact term for it off the top of my head, but like just to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying too. So you're kind of like, if somebody at Walmart, like people decide to have like a cockfight or something like that in the back, and why I'm using cocks, but it's just like, we'll use that instead.
Well, I don't want to be too inappropriate because like I've got like a sailor's tongue, you know.
Hey man, it's all good. Like we're halfway. Like I mean, we're 40 minutes in. So I'm not too opposed. As long as it's not like derogatory, like against a specific individual or person. Like
Oh yeah, no,
my term.
I wouldn't.
Awesome. Yeah, my terms don't really matter. But like, so like basically at Walmart, somebody decides to have like a cockfight or rooster fight in the back or something like that. You're saying like Walmart can like say that they weren't responsible for that said
Yeah,
occurrence, right?
even if the case was that they were responsible, like let's say something a little bit more extreme, like prostitution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like they could say we aren't responsible because the like not manager, but say the regional manager, he says, oh, you know, we should do this. You know, this will help us make a little bit of more money. We'll have to keep it undercover, but like they legally, I'm talking out my ass. I heard this on in like a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I know. Oh God, the fucking stream's playing again. But like I feel like that guy who was talking about it, like he couldn't just have heard it out of nowhere, like, oh, let me make up this term. Because like people have done almost everything in history. Like, imagine someone has done it. There was a guy who was like over in Russia or Germany who would like cross dress and like drink the blood of children. It's terrifying. So like I wouldn't put past like especially today, I wouldn't put it past like large companies to do something like this, you know, especially when like you know, people aren't really bringing it up as an issue or a possible issue. I mean, like nobody, like, I, I don't know. I, I don't know.
No, dude,
Sorry.
no, you're good, bro. Like it's challenging because it's just like it's it's such a big like can of worms because it does tie back to what you're saying too, where it's just like there's all these individuals that are saying like, oh, the government's the problem, this person's the problem, Walmart's the problem, anybody else is the problem, and then it's just like, well, like it's not really them. Like, sure, they quote unquote can be the problem, but it's like we can't control, and this is something that I've come to realize is like I can't control the outcomes or the responsibilities or what somebody else does, but what I can do and what I can control is how I react to like this said scenario. So it's like, sure, the government could have these problems, but it's like, why am I so worried about this? Like, why am I so worried about what they're doing and how like they're behaving? It's just like, what can I do? Like, what can I control? And like, what I can control is like, I can control having a conversation with you. What you say during this conversation, like that's completely out of my control. Just as like what I say is completely out of your control. But like, I can at least step back and like look at this kind of like tying back to the money aspect too, is like, I can see me making a lot of money and like you making a lot of money or you going off and doing the things that you want to do is like, that's your own inherent drive. Like that's what you decide to do. What other people think and what we believe that they may think, like that's completely out of our control. Like it takes courage to be disliked. And there's a good book, it's called The Courage to be Disliked basically, but it's just like we have to be willing to like do things that other people aren't wanting to do. And if you think about it this way, so like when you're thinking in your mind and you're playing these scenarios of like having previous conversations or thinking that this other person is this way, like, and they're thinking this thing about you, like, is that really them thinking that thing about you, or is that you thinking that thing about yourself?
Is that hypothetical? Is it, like rhetorical or?
No, like you don't have to answer that right now, but like if you think about it, like all of
No,
our.
no, I agree. Like I'd rather be. Sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to
you're
cut you
good,
off.
dude. You're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would rather be disliked for like being who I am rather than like be liked and be a terrible person. Because well, at least in my kind of like that's what I'm getting out of it. Because like I mean, you have all like I'm like using majority of people. God, like because people can be liked, they can be just absolute shitheads, you know, to use a term loosely, and like hundreds of people will like back them up and say, yeah, this guy's right, this guy is correct, you know, and it's like I don't agree with this guy morally, or like I don't agree with like his principles or whatever, you know. But then you'll be seen as like the kind of not evil, maybe evil, because you know there are people who are like who like paint you as like a heretic, like oh you not subscribe to the. I'm like
to the ideologies of like whatever belief that somebody needs to believe in or something like that. Like they're trying to get you into a certain dogma.
No, not like a literal like religion. It will not or a cult. Like just it could be anything, you know. Like you know, people really like this. Actually, this is really funny because I remember talking to a friend about a similar situation where it was like, "Hey," I was like, "This this one place is kind of terrible because they don't like I there's a lot of context behind it, but it's like there's no real like censorship going on there. And when I mean like, like censorship that needs to be added. And it's like this wasn't online. It was like IRL stuff, like back when Hot Topic was a thing, right? I
Hmm.
was like 14 or 15. I was talking to a friend of mine. Like they have like you go in there, the first thing you see is like a dick, like a cartoony dick. It's like, yeah, it's like it, that's the only thing I remember from that place. But I was traumatized by Hot Topic, and I would talk to it with like a friend of mine. He's like, oh, well, that's like you don't really go in there. It's like, well, what if you're like some dumbass like 9-year-old who goes in? Uh, fuck, I'm like, I don't know why I brought that up.
No, dude, it's true. It's true though, man. Like if you think about it, and our minds work. I kind of maybe this is why you brought it up, maybe not, but like this is kind of what I was just kind of getting out of this is like when you go into this certain place, like you're probably expecting to have this certain type of outcome. Like when you walked into Hot Topic, you weren't expecting to see a dick, but then all of a sudden there's a dick there. And I had that
Yeah,
same thing, like with Spencer's. Like I would go in and I was like, this place is weird. Like what's going on? Like why are there all
it
these
was
dildos and things
Spencer's.
back there? You know? So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
interesting.
remember it was Spencer's that I went into because it was like a mall. I walk in there because it's a really funny story if you want to hear it.
Yeah,
It's
by all means, man.
uh,
Like share away if you're
like
open to
my
it.
my uncle or aunt, they were like, "Oh, okay, I've got to watch you because your mom's in the bathroom." And then like they were going to Spencer's, like, "I don't want to go in there." It's like, why not? It's like it's dark and spooky in there. I don't want to go in there. And like, you know what? My first time going to a sex shop is like being babysat. It's like I mean, it was like then it was traumatizing, but give it a few years, it's like, wow, that was I I am confused by that experience. Why did they think it was a good idea to bring me in there? Like who watches their kid in like a Spencer's, right? Like that's dumb as fuck, you know?
Well, it kind of ties back to what I was kind of relaying a little bit earlier. Maybe this is also why you brought it up. Is like now that specific moment, you use that specific moment to create certain maps or models or like experiences or stories that you tell yourself. It's like, why did my
Yeah,
parents let me go into this store? And now all of a sudden, like this whole store is like creating this whole identity around myself because like at the time, like I didn't know what this was. Like I didn't know what a sex store was. Like I didn't know people did these things. Kind of like how you were talking about earlier too, of like how there's people out there. It's funny to think that like people do these things, but it's like the dude that like drinks blood and like does all these weird, strange things. It's like because
yeah,
there's
no, this was
probably
like this
go
was
ahead.
like in the 80s or like 70s. Like there was a guy, or maybe before, but there was a guy like Ugandan like war general who would cross dress and just like I don't like it was like you wouldn't believe me saying that, but like look it up. It was a dude. He's out there. Uh, I don't know if he's still alive or if he's still like in the military, but he's out there
Gonda.
cross dressing and drinking blood. Uganda, yeah, he's Ugandan, I think.
I don't know if I can spell that right, but yeah, like
It's like, yeah,
yeah, but like that's the weird thing. And I mean, I guess that's just also the thing with like society in general too. Is like everybody is always going to individually be doing the thing that they themselves want to be doing. Like there's this story or this show that I watched called Taskmaster too, and it's just like people we think pay so much more attention to us than we actually believe that they do. So it's like the cross-dresser dude in Uganda, like that's just who he is. But like it's such a crazy and absurd thing, kind of like you're saying too, where it's just like anything that has ever happened or like anything like whatever idea that you have, like it exists out there somewhere. Like somebody's already done that said thing, but it's just like
yeah.
we put our own inherent values and beliefs on that said thing on whether or not like it's correct or it's wrong because somebody in our past like the story of you going into Spencer's decided that that was the thing that like solidified like okay sex stores like it could be one of two things could have
I'm
happened. It could be like I love this or it's like what is this like what's going on like there's no like middle ground where it's like okay now I have this
nothing but
fascination
mortification.
yeah
Yeah,
exactly so it's just like it's so challenging because like you can't compete with that necessarily. Like all you have is your own inherent belief systems as to what you think is right
and you
and what is wrong.
and you could apply that to what you were talking about earlier with like how people like apply to these groups of people. Well, while they aren't like necessarily like being affected directly by like say wealthy people or like these large political figures like Mr. Beast or whatever the hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could be whatchamacallit. They could be being affected secondhand, not even affected, but they could be experiencing it through like word of mouth, right? Like you would never know about my story on like how I was like terrified of like sex shops. Like that was my trauma. Like or out of context, it sounds terrible, but like that's my fear, my biggest freaking fear now. But like that affected me. And now like say, I don't know, you're talking to a friend of yours and like he told you the same story. It's like, oh well, sex shops sound pretty fucked up, like I don't like it. Like let's pretend you're ignorant enough to like not look it up or look I don't know. Like then you would tell somebody else and it becomes this like game of telephone where you hear this person's like a piece of shit or this or you could use this for like very specific individuals too, like say Lord Drixus, right? He seems like a cool guy. I drink a beer with him. But let's say someone said, oh, Drixus is a dickhead, he stole my baby llama when I was like 30. He's a bastard. But like in all honesty, it could just be like it's just word of mouth, and and like it goes and I'm so sorry. I'm like butchering.
No, dude, you're good. Keep on going.
Like it could like it becomes this sort of ideology where it's like you either have to like succumb to what they believe you are or you have to kind of keep pushing forward. You got to have that little bit of hope. You got to keep on like clinging to what's like left. And I'm not saying that as like a defeationist or whatever the hell what are they called?
I'm not sure.
Defeationist?
Possibly a defeationist. We can go with defeationist. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but
I'm gonna say negative Nelly because like that doesn't sound like
nihilist. Maybe a nihilist, possibly.
Yeah, like a nihilist. Like I don't mean to sound like a nihilist, but and what you're talking about, like you can't worry about all these bigger things. Yeah, you got to worry about yourself because there's a really corny song I listened to back when I was in high school called "Sinking Ships." Right? Mm-hmm. It actually, I think, minus the context of where the song comes from, trust me, it's not like anything NSFW. It's just really corny. But the song is about like you shouldn't like expect yourself to do these huge grand things. But you got to like kind of take life step by step. There may be like World War III going around you. They're sending in the cannibals, the mutant cannibals that were genetically altered by Japan. But you got to just keep living life day by day. You can't just like kind of give it up just because people look down on you. People think you're a piece of crap, or I don't know, because your boss is an asshole or whatever. It's like,
yeah. And it's. Dude, and this is the things that I've been working through myself. So I'm glad that you kind of brought this up because like I have personal experience and personal like just bases in life experience from this too, because it's true. Like, I mean, Lord Drexus, like he's been with me for a while and I appreciate him with all the videos. He was commenting on, I think like all the videos when I did like 30 videos for the month of December and like January. And like, I'm like, I love the dude. He's fantastic. Clearly he likes what I talk about. So I appreciate that. And it's one of those things where it's just like, I have spent so much time worrying about the opinions and thoughts of other people instead of worrying and considering the thoughts and opinions that I have of myself. So it's like what you believe to be true, like might not inherently be like what I believe to be true, but does that make you any different or any less than myself? No. Vice versa, like applies for you. It's just like
no, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't like you should like listen to the opinions people have if they're inherently negative, mm-hmm. right? Like if you know it isn't true, like say someone says, hey, you know what, I don't know, I'm gonna call you Gary.
Like, works for me.
Gary's a bastard, he cheated, he cucked me out of my wife. He cucked my wife. Like that's not true. I hope that's not true.
No,
like, that's not true.
Not right now.
Dude.
I do no. But like that's the thing, man. Like we get so consumed in like what other people say about other people, but it's like what happens if we actually truly sit down with that person? Like Sam Harris, he's a big dude. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's big into like meditation and mindfulness. He has an app called like Waking Up, and like certain people hate him for his political views and his ideologies that he like says to be true, but like there's other people that like truly believe and support what he has to say. So it's like I've talked with a lot of other like content creators and people online too, where it's just like you need to have those haters, those people that like don't like you, because like that's not a reflection of you, that's a reflection of themselves. Like they're just projecting that hate and that despair and that anger onto you, whereas like I'm doing the best that I can on a given day. Like this right now, what I'm having, like this conversation that you and I are having, the video that I made, like that's what I could do for today. Like that was that one simple step that I could take. Like if World War III was happening all around me, what I can do is I can at least show up, I can have a conversation, and maybe I can impact one person's life. Like instead of me trying to like
have a conversation with. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say like.
No, I was gonna make a.
Go ahead. I'll
make a
sleepy.
really
It's
dumb
you.
joke.
Yeah, go for it.
Like, you can have a nice philosophical conversation with the genetically altered cannibal Japanese mutant. That, made in Japan, not Japanese as an ethnicity. Got to make that differentiation.
Which is like, when did that when did that start happening? Like, why did we have to start making all these strange different differentiations? Like, why can't people just be people? Like, why can't we just be who we are? Like, why do we have to conform to like what somebody else says? Why do we have to believe that this person is not doing good or this person is doing good? Like, what if we just took our own perceptions and like went off of that? Like, that's kind of how I've been starting to take my approach with life, is like, why not do the things that I enjoy doing compared to the things that other people want me to do, and just like stop caring so much. But it's just like, it's so hard, but it's also like, you have to kind of go through that. At least that's what I've come to realize. Like, that's the only way that I know how to learn, is by like going through hard things, going through trials and tribulations, and realizing that like certain things that I do, like they aren't going to work. Like I've had some people comment on certain videos where they're like, this dude's a schizo or he's crazy or something like that. I'm like, let them. Like that's them projecting their own insecurities onto myself. So it's like, might as well just take the life as I have and start taking those like small incremental steps every single day. But sometimes it's hard, man. Like sometimes getting up, sometimes having those past traumas that you're saying too, like they stick with us. And it's why I do so much journaling, I do so much writing, is because that's the only way that I know how to digest those like past experiences, so that they stop, say, like manifesting in like the real world, either consciously or unconsciously.
Like they don't make, because no, I get what you mean. Like, and I wouldn't say, well, for me, it's not really trauma. It's more like just like, I've had an anger issue since I was a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, so I have to find another way to kind of like externalize that anger through either just like, because I used to work out when I was younger. Well, not like at the same time where I was like a heavy, violent. I'm not even gonna get into that. I was thinking about what you were talking about with how like people were like, well, the differentiation is more like, you're gonna hate this because I was thinking completely different. I was like, oh well, like we're gonna compare like now in the present day compared to like later on in the future, where, god damn it, the stream keeps playing. I'm just gonna exit out of it.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Like I dislike thinking that World War III, if it ever comes, God forbid it does, like it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be this terrible thing where things are gonna be exaggerated. Like, you ever seen that meme with the Mecha Pope?
I don't think so.
It's great. It's just this guy wearing a Crusader's helmet, like while wearing like a little like Space Marine armor. It's really goofy, but it's like, okay, I like this. This is funny. This is what it's gonna happen in the future. It's just gonna be Mecha Pope versus I don't know, the genetically altered cannibals that were created in like a lab somewhere.
Just so true. Because,
Oh my
dude,
God.
I had to look up.
No, you go ahead.
I just had to look up what you're talking about. I looked up the Mecha Pope meme. It's kind of like there's this other one too where it's just like you all are wrong. I don't know if you've seen this meme at all or not. I'll send it to you in Discord.
Thank you.
We'll copy image and do it this way. So it looks like this. I mean, the meme's a little bit different, and you can disregard like the other Hindu, so you think all of you are right or wrong or whatever it may be. But like, this is kind of how I feel in my life right now, where it's just like, and maybe you feel it as well too, but it's just like before, with all these other people that were like on the world and like in this area, it's just like they were all presenting like their ideas and their beliefs and their strategies onto me, and like I would believe them. But it's like now it's just like, none of them know what I'm doing. None of them know what you're doing. None of them know what anybody else is doing.
Or what you're going through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, but they project what they themselves are going through. And that's why, like, I was talking with some other people on one of the other Discords that I'm a part of, but it's just like, everybody wants to project like their values and their beliefs of who you need to be onto yourself, where it's just like, what if I don't want to be that way? What if I want to be this different way? Like, what if I do want to be the person that's making $1 million a month or something like that? Like, is that a bad thing for me to do? I don't think so. But like, as we were talking about earlier, like some people, they'll come in and they'll think like, well, what is Weeb doing? And I'll go this way. Like, what's Caleb doing? Like, what's his problem? Like, why is he why is he making all this money? Like, he's doing all this bad thing, but it ties back to like, that's where I find love.
What
Like,
we
that's where I
expect,
find joy. Go ahead.
yeah, like or like what people expect to have all these great things is. I think I don't mean to sound like a pseudo intellectual, but I think generally like a lot of people are just not like just thinking negatively, like not like inherently like, oh, the world's gonna end tomorrow, but more like, well, we can't get a lot of good things out of what we have. We can't get a lot of good things by just doing what we do, which, the opposite may be true, but it's all about like I'm gonna sound a little crazy, but I'm like a subscriber to the belief of chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or not, not tying back to the fucking Warhammer shit, but like there's like a different belief, right? Like where if you put your belief into something, I'm not saying like if you believe in magic, you could like cast fireball or some dumb shit, but like if you really believe that you can make money from doing something that you love and doing something that for other people, then it can happen. It just depends on how deeply you want to do it, how willing you are to go for it, and how like this will sound really corny, right? But uh like let's use like shonen pro tags for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like people like kind of make fun of the idea of like, oh, if I believe in myself hard enough and if I'm willing to do this hard enough, that's the reason they do this is because, like you become an unstoppable, not literally an unstoppable force, but you're telling the universe, I will do this and I want to do this. And it just kind of like I feel like I sound crazy. Like you get what I'm saying though, right? It's like people would rather believe that they can't achieve something. They would rather like believe that they're absolute bastards, that they need to be like or like the guy who got the job, or I don't know, you for like making a good chunk of money, that you are a monster because you're making money. And I'm not saying it's because you're making money, but they believe you're doing something on the side that's like, suspect. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
what if he's selling drugs? What if he's like an organ harvester? What if he's I don't know, the fucking God, I'm trying to remember this one shitty game that I saw like Retsu Play made. Or not make, but like play. But like I don't know, like you're the shadow man, you're stealing people's organs and shit to like sell sell to the government. You get what I mean? Like it's like and I don't think it's unfounded because there's a lot of evil shit going on in the world. But and it's very like I don't know if it's naive. I don't know if it's like an optimist or whatever. But I like to believe that like if we try to change what's going on around us a little bit by little bit, we wouldn't have to like worry about crime or like any. Oh my god, I'm like fucking. I sound crazy. I know I sound crazy. You don't,
Dude,
but
you don't sound crazy by any means. Like this is what I love, and this is why I like having conversations because it's like other people that you've probably surrounded yourself with, and I know this to be true myself, where it's just like they think that I sound absolutely crazy and insane for believing the things that I do, or how you're talking
yeah,
like with the shonens, where it's like I believe in myself to do this, but it's just like we've watched so much anime and played so many video games, and it's just like when we clutch that, and it's just like we take on those characteristics when it's like the odds are completely stacked against us. And we get that second boost of energy where it's just like, no, I can defeat this person that's standing in my way. I can do this thing. But it's just like too often everybody's telling us, at least for me personally, it's like, oh, you can't do this. You can't make this happen. Oh, it's too difficult. Oh, it's just like, look at all these other people that have failed. Look at all these other people that have tried. But it's just like, I'm over here. I'm like, I like doing the optimistic view where it's like, well, look at this one person that has succeeded. Like if this one person has done this said thing, then that means I can also do this said thing. Even if it takes me 10 years, if it takes me like losing everything, like I think back to Thanos, where it's just like he wanted to end, like wipe out half the population with the snap of his fingers, and he was willing to pay any price to do that. So it's like it's the same thing for me. It's like willing to pay any price. And like when you're talking about like the universe coming in and like showing like, hey, this is what I'm working towards, this is the value that I want to provide, I think race starts to play a role in it. Like the odds of you and I having a conversation, like the odds of you saying certain things, like they resonate with me. They get me emotional, man. Like they make me have these feelings that like I didn't originally have because like I decided to do those challenging hard things without like giving up. It takes courage to do the things that like I do or that you do or that anybody else does. But we discredit ourselves so often because we don't think that we're worthy. But it's like everybody's as worthy as like anybody else. Like the value that I have is the exact same value that you have. It's just a matter of like some people, due to past experiences and past stories, have thought that that wasn't true, and they start to devalue themselves when it's like everybody has value to do whatever they want to do in their life. It's just, it's hard because not many people will want to recognize or acknowledge that themselves. And it's why, like, sure, you and I might sound crazy saying these things, but it's like people thought that like Alchimedes or like I'm trying to think of the dude that first like decided to say that like the world, that the earth wasn't the center of the planet. Like people thought that he was crazy saying that like no, the sun's actually the center of the center of like our solar system. They're like no, it's earth. But it's like he thought.
I know who you're talking about. It's the guy I remember learning about him in geology for like college. But I know what you're talking about. Like they would call him crazy or like, oh, like his idea of like what the sun was being heaven was like not really there, but like the idea that it was like the thing that like everything like rolled around, which is also why like the Pope had to say like, oh, it's a religious thing, it's heaven. That's why everything orbits around it. But like that's like history stuff, and I may be getting it wrong because I'm not a fan of geology.
No,
Fucking, like,
but it's also like how you were talking about like magic too. Like you're like, it's crazy for people to believe that like, but like I don't see magic as like shooting like fireballs or anything like that. I see magic more as like you have magic within like yourself, like
those little miracles that we can make happen in life. Yeah,
exactly.
Like not like huge miracles like raising someone from the dead like Jesus, but like like the getting up in the morning when the day before was like just terrible, like it was back-breaking work, or you had your heart broken and you feel like absolute shit, but you're still getting up. That's that tiny little miracle of like that's what I like to call magical, but it's like I feel like to other people I sound crazy and stuff, right? But like for me it's like those tiny moments where we're happy, or those tiny moments where like we get to spend time with people who like care about us, like even if they think we're crazy, it's like it's magical, like I mean there's this really weird not weird, but there's this really kind of beautiful song where it talks about how like you compare plants to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have all these animals that have like very similar genes or whatever, like plants that have very similar genes to each other, right? They look and like genetically they're all the same, well, compared to like their species, like if you have two like wolves next to each other, they're gonna have the same genealogy besides like the fur. But like when you compare people, like we're very different from one another, and it's I think that, and I don't, like I sound like a fucking crazy guy, like scientifically I could probably be proven wrong, but I like to think it's one of those like kind of miracles that make us like not like perfect or amazing, but like it's those things you kind of smile about and say, hey, you know what, that's neat, I like that. And it's kind of hard to say like people kind of look for like positivity and stuff like that. Like oh my god, I'm like I'm talking for most of your show.
Dude, you're
I'm
good,
sorry
bro. This
about
is what I love. Like this is what I love doing. Like these are the things that I have always wanted to do because like I just love listening to other people's stories and experiences and like hearing where you came from, because it helps, one, like me realize that like, hey, other people also do think in the same way that I do, and two, like I always thought I was crazy as well too for having these beliefs. So having you come in and be like, hey, like I also believe these things, or I see these things in your way. I might not agree with you 100% of the way, but like I like hearing those things. And when something comes up, like I'll add in my 2 cents or whatever it may be later. But it's just like I also just like listening. I'm one of those weird dudes that's just like listening to other people. It's why I was good at sales. It's why I've been able to make money, is because like I'm not here to judge or like take away from what you believe to be true. I genuinely just want to hear your perspective, man. Like that's my whole objective, and that's how I've done it with everybody, everywhere, anywhere that I meet. Like you could ask all my friends and be like, yeah, this is just what Caleb does. Like this, he just goes out and just has conversations and he just listens to people. It's what I love doing. So like,
quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a very serious question, Weeb. Are you Weeb Afton?
No, I don't. I was wondering what that was. Like, I didn't even know what Weeb Afton was.
It's Five Nights at Freddy's. It's like a joke about William. No, it's like an old Zoomer thing, right? But it's like the guy's name is William, so we were like, no, he's like the son. He's the forgotten, like those old shitty fanfics where it's like, oh, the forgotten brother or the forgotten child of blah blah blah, goofy shit like that.
Yeah, no, I have not. But like, also, I don't know. I'm always torn because like, I have no problem being on camera like for certain things, but when it comes to these certain topics, I'm like, I just feel like I'm the crazy nut, like you're saying, where it's just like, sometimes I want to put my face on, but then other times I don't, and then that's probably just like maybe an insecurity that I have, where it's just like, I'm happy to have it on other things, but like, this is also one of those
Oh,
things where like,
it's understandable though, because like when I was 18, right, like 4 years ago, I used to I used to hang around like a couple of people. And they would like kind of make me insecure in like what I believed or what I kind of saw. Like I wasn't like a fucked up individual, right? Like what we see now happening all over the internet. But I was like, oh well, there's a little bit of magic, like what I'm talking to you about now. But it's like it's good talking to somebody about this because it's like great minds think alike. Not to be pompous or anything.
No, it's true though.
Like it's hard to kind of like not. It's hard to kind of open yourself up to like people who are just like I think that one guy wanted to like not anyone here or like in chat or whatever, but like this one guy I talked to, like I know he had beef with me. I had beef with his friends, so he definitely had beef with me. He wanted to like throw me under some figurative bus or some shit. It was terrible, But that's like, and I guess that was the issue with me for being very trusting and stuff. And you could also apply that to like, I guess on a lesser scale to like people globally, like I don't know, like someone stole your favorite toy when you were like 5. So now when you're like, I don't know, 20 or something, you want to like, you don't trust people with your shit. You're like, hey, if you're going to touch my shit, like you better drop it before you leave the door. I'm going to like inspect you, make sure you didn't steal my shit. Like that sort of goofy shit.
Yeah. Well, it's not goofy. Like it's true to you. Like that's the thing. Like that's where I think.
No, yeah.
It's like
and
almost
it goes
a deep
back
value,
in the circle, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's based off everyone's kind of experiences, which like I wanted to bring this up in chat. Like it could be like nature versus nature and nurture, because I was a huge psychology buff, but like I went through an angsty phase. I was like, I really hate all the people in here who like there's a term for it. I saw this in this one video. They were talking about it, but it's like they want to take psychology so they could say, oh, this guy's a psychopath or this guy's a narcissist. I actually have a whole story about that. I can tell you like off camera, because it's like, it's silly, but it's like one of those situations where it's like, what did I do wrong? Like, I'll just tell you right now. So there's this girl who I'm just gonna say girl because I don't know what the hell.
Don't need to do any docs or anything like that. So that's perfect.
Yeah, like no, this was like online, right? She's like, oh, I want to become a like an adult actress, and I'm like, that's not a very good idea. Like, there's a lot of fucked up shit going on in the industry. And she's like, are you trying to scare me? Are you trying to threaten me? I'm like, no, I'm trying to warn you. Like, and I remember this like situation beat by beat, because it was like, it's like I don't know, it's like when you see a unicorn for the very first time. It's like, it's beautiful. It was like seeing how someone could like, and I'm gonna tell you right now, like I've looked into like some industries and stuff. Like obviously the adult industry is like really fucked up, especially with like how they traffic people. So I'm warning this person who's like 19 at this time, right? Like they were my age at the time, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go like become an adult actress, and I'm like, that's not a good idea. Like people are gonna take advantage of you, And, like this person wasn't my friend. This was someone I had sort of beef with, and I'm like, people are fucking crazy. And I guess you could like, I don't mean crazy like, like you're willing to open your mind up to stuff, but rather like you're willing to like shut something down because it doesn't like provide any like sustenance to their own like kind of beliefs. Like, why do you want to do this? Obviously it's like either for enjoyment or whatever the hell, right? But there's also that idea of like, it could, like, if you shut ideas down that you don't agree, like I'm definitely guilty of that. Like whenever I'm talking to a friend of mine, like he would tell me, oh, you should try doing this. I'm like, you shut the fuck up. I'll run my games if I want to run my games. I'll do my D&D shit the way I want it, But it's like, but not really, that's like something else. But like, I guess that's more of like a group scenario thing where it's like, you ever play D&D?
I have once, but I haven't played it in a long time. I kind of came in halfway through, but I do understand like the terminologies behind a lot of these things.
Well, like, it's more about the group dynamic and stuff. But like the biggest thing about it is like you want a group of people who like you're not trying to like find ideologues that like subscribe to your every word. Like you're the next coming of like Jesus, like or Jesus too. If you heard of him, you ever hear Jesus too?
I have heard a lot. I haven't heard of him exactly, but I have heard like
He lives off the coast of like some foreign country, and he has 12 wives and 2 guys who just like live on the island with him.
Hey, I mean, well, so like, this is my whole thing. I'm like, people have every right to believe what they want to believe. Like, it might not necessarily be true, like with your beliefs or my belief system, but like if that's what they like, if they truly do believe that that guy is the second coming of Jesus, they have every right to believe so. Like, I don't think that there's any reason to discredit that said person.
I agree with that. Like, I mean, I agree. He seemed like a really cool guy. Like, I just find it like if you're trying to build a raft, don't build like a. He's building a like I'm not an architecture, like right. Like I'm not even like in like an engineering major. I'm an English major, but like if you're trying to build an ark, right? You're not gonna build like a raft. You're not gonna build like a like plate. I don't know, what do you call it in construction? Like before you start like placing in the walls and stuff.
Oh, like the frame or something like that, or
Yeah, like it's like planks of wood on frames.
mhm.
That's
Like
not
an
a
outline
boat.
or something like that. No, it's just like it is kind of like an outline almost. It's like a diagram, a
No, no,
blueprint, like a
yeah,
blueprint.
yeah. Like my issue is like if he's trying to prepare for the flood, like why are you building this like big building? Like build a boat. I don't know if anyone there knows how to build a boat though. Like I'm
Well,
scared if Jesus is gonna like, we're gonna find him like face down in the water. That's really messed up. I shouldn't joke about that. But like, if you're worried about a flood, build a boat. Don't build a frame.
well, it's about
You know?
it is I guess understanding like what is he trying to solve for? Like what problem? Because like maybe to him he thinks that that's what he needs to build, but like to other people
A flood.
outside, hmm
He
like
he he said specifically this is an ark, like Noah's ark.
yeah. Well, it also probably comes back to like the reason why Hitler and all these other successful people have failed is because like they stopped listening to other people in certain ways. So it's kind of like how you were saying too, like you have your friends that are like, hey, you can play D&D this way, like it'll probably help you out. But you're like, nah, screw you guys, like I'm going to do it my way. I know I've been guilty of that myself too, where it's like, I'm going to do it this way, and it's stubbornness,
Yeah,
bro. It's not great, but it's also like we have to have like we have to be able to withstand or stand up to like for our own certain beliefs, but then still be willing to take on and listen to other people's perspectives and understandings.
yes, exactly.
Because like by doing that, at least I can go out and I can like test it. Like I can be like, okay, Sleepy says this. Let's let me go try this idea. Or like some other streamer or guy that I watch online says this. Like, let's let me go see if this is actually true. And then I go test and I'm like, oh, okay, this is true. So it's like for me, tying back to kind of how the stream started as well too, is like it's like for me to be able to make and close deals, like all I have to do is reach out to 100 people. Like before I was in sales, I didn't know that was a solution, but once I start making 100 phone calls, it's like, oh, it's really easy to close sales and make money. So it's just like, but like I had to go out and test that thing where I could be like listening to this person over and over and over again on like what to do, but until I actually implement that thing, it's like it's very hard. And it's so strange and weird because like until we have that conversation with somebody else, like one of your friends can come in and be like, hey Sleepy, if you like, and I never really played LOL. It's not LOL. League of Legends.
It's all good. It's all good.
I,
But like, like yeah, no, like, though I wouldn't like if it's gonna be like a positive example, I wouldn't recommend it. It's so competitive. Like if and you seem like a really positive guy. I would drink a beer with you. But like the moment you start playing that game, it goes from like, oh, I'm having fun with my friends to like, I'm gonna rip my friend's fucking head off if he keeps feeding this guy.
and that's like the
I
thing.
hate.
Like, but you see that from your friend's perspective. But like, if you were say doing that yourself, like, would you be able to identify it as clearly as your friend? Like, you identify it for your friend. Like, I feel like
Yeah, no. It's like, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like we're so good at being able to identify like other people's shortcomings and what they aren't doing well. But then when it comes to our own like self-criticism, it's very hard for us to be like, oh no, if I just change this one small little thing and that this person recommended that I do, like I'm kind of at a shortfall. Whereas like, but you tell your friend, like, let's say you're in a toxic relationship or you're dating a girl or something like that, like you don't like your
Yeah.
job. It's just like I could have other people telling me those things like, hey, the girl that you're with is terrible, but it's like you're blinded because like you're so in love with her, like you love the money that you're making at your job. So that's why it's like I'm able to like take that step back and be like, well, even if I do have this power and I feel great, like I know my worth and I know how I don't want to be treated. So like I'm gonna step away, even if like people think that I'm absolutely insane and crazy for doing so, but I'm still gonna go off and do that said thing because I've been able to internalize my own, maybe it's not self-worth, but like my own like self-essence of like what I will tolerate versus what I won't tolerate to help me reach my goals. And if somebody comes in and takes me down on that peg, it's like I don't have to have that person in my life. Like I've come to realize that I'm perfectly okay being on my, like, alone and by myself. But there's a lot of people that don't do that. So they put up this front and they put on this other show in front of like their friends and family members so that they aren't having to be alone. And as Epictetus said,
Yeah.
another Stoic philosopher, it's just like most of men's problems would be solved if they could just sit alone in a room for 5 minutes. And dude, like if you saw what I do, like after streams are over and whatever it may be, like you'd be like, this dude's absolutely crazy and insane. Like he just sits in a room by himself, like, and does nothing. Like a couple days ago on one of the other channels, I literally stared at a wall for 4 hours. Like that's all I did. I didn't have my phone. I didn't have anything else. Like it was just me staring at a blank wall for 4 hours because I wanted to like overcome my mind and all those other like preconceived notions and ideas that I have around like, oh, this is what, like, this isn't a bad thing if I make money, or this is a bad thing if I provide this type of value, or this is a bad thing and I'm going to be judged and disliked if I do this
I
said
get what you
thing.
mean. Like you would meditate on the idea of like what people would say versus like your own beliefs on it. Which I mean, like we could make it inverse, like for people who are like who have this sort of issue where it's like, say that like people believe in something that is hurting them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I had a friend, for example, right, who was deeply in love with this girl, right? Like deeply in love. When I mean deeply, I mean like he would have bit my head off if like, I like he like honestly he did, like not literally, but like he got pissed off at me for telling him this. But it's like, yo, guy, like this girl is like no good for you. She's like cheating on you and shit. It's like like, and he was like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. But then when it did happen, when like this shit all went down, it's like you don't like that guy was like kind of blinded by this belief, and it's like, well, you're not trying to like hurt this guy, you're not trying to like stomp on him while it's down, like you gotta like, and like that's the issue with a lot of masculinity, right? You could be like, you could be a straight guy and still be like, hey, my bro's like upset because his girl was cheating on him, let me be there for him. Because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of guys, they want to be like, hey, well, like and maybe this is mostly because like I have no like social interaction. It's the opposite for me. I need interaction or else I'll go crazy and like I don't know, like crucify somebody to like. No, I'm joking, but
No,
like I'll go crazy like in my own way. It's like I gotta find someone to talk to. Where is everybody?
exactly. Like I've kind of felt that same way, dude. And it's just like we have 8 billion people on this planet, and it's just like everybody's so lonely. Like for me personally, dude, like I've never had that lonely aspect. I more challenged myself not to talk to people. Like I went 2 or 3 months without saying a single word to anybody. Like I would just go home, I'd go to the gym, I'd do some work, like, and I just didn't say jack to anybody. Like maybe I'd talk like via like typing or something like that. But like even that, like I was trying not to because I'm so used to and so accustomed to just like starting up conversations and having conversations with strangers. But it's just like there's so many people out there that are so lonely and don't know how to talk with people, and they're like eager to have those types of conversations. And like that's why I love the internet and being able to sit down and have conversations with you, because it's like we get to have these different perspectives and I get to see like what you think and how your world is and like where things come from. But it is true also, it's just like these people, they're going to have this belief of like, oh, I love this girl, or I love this thing, like I can't let go of this, I need it. And it's just like, but like what happened, like what would your life look like if not? Like I have a story for this. Like there's I went on this camping trip, like I guess it was more like an Airbnb type of thing, and I ended up going up to the mountains in Colorado with these people that I had met, like from a different friend that I met at the gym. And like one of the
Yeah.
girls, she wasn't super happy with her husband. Like she hadn't been happy for years. Like she was just miserable. She just didn't enjoy like what he was doing. He was just watching anime, didn't have any drive. Like he just didn't have any purpose in life. And she said they hadn't had like sex for like 4 or 5 years or something like that. Maybe not that long. It might have been months. But I was like, why are you still with him? And she's like, well, it's because we have all these things together. And I was like, but like, why? Like, what's your point? Like, are you happy? And she's like, no. And I was like, she was also a therapist or a psychologist. And I'm like, what would you tell one of your patients if they were in this said position? She's like, well, I'd tell them like to do this, like start working on the divorce papers, tell them I'm not happy, do whatever steps it was to be able to get out of that. And then like 2 weeks later, the guy that I met that invited me on the trip was like, yeah, so that girl, like, she ended up leaving her husband and like, we're dating now. I was like, dude, that's awesome. But it's just like, it takes somebody else coming into the world to like look at that person's perspective to be like, oh, okay, this is something that I can help out with. Because we could just get so blinded with our day in and day out activities that it's very hard and challenging for us to overcome those things. And it's just like, sure, there may be people that you want to crucify and there may be people that like you don't like or don't enjoy or whatever it may be. But it's just like, I've come to realize it's better to be alone with what I believe and get to do what I enjoy than having to be somebody else that I'm not to make other people happy.
Shit, like I'm lost for words. That's like, I mean, that's a way to look at it too. I mean,
it's a lot, man.
No, I mean that's a good way to go about it. Like if you can't really like prepare something that's not there, because like, you know, like the guy was like, you know, kind of like, I don't know, maybe he had like a weird, because I know this is like a psychological thing where like you're more attracted to like something like an art piece rather than your own wife. Because I don't know. I mean, they were married for how long?
So they were married for, I believe it was like 5 years or 6 years or something like that. So they had been married for several years. They were happy when they first got together. And then her and I, we were talking, and she was just like, yeah, I'm not happy like with my husband anymore. I'm not having relationships. Like we aren't doing great together. And then I ended up like, after coming back over the past, like I just ended up talking with her and I was like, so what's going on? Like, how are things going with you and your husband and everything like that? And she's like, I'm just not happy. And I was like, well, why stay? I'm like, isn't it better to go like be with the devil that you don't know? But it's, most people end up staying with the devil they do know. And I've just come to realize that like, I would rather, and I've done this myself, dude. And like, I was journaling about it this morning too, is like, I would rather be loved by myself because I'm the one person that I have to spend the rest of my life with than have to try and put on a show or a front to be around somebody else to make them happy, even if that means that like it could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be like somebody that I've known for my entire life. But it's just like the one person that I have to make happy and enjoy and be with for my entire life is myself. So why do I have to appeal to somebody else's standards of how I need to live my life when they have no dictation of like what I do? Like I can help them, like I've tried to help other people too, but like if people don't want help, like if this girl, if she didn't want to have help, like I couldn't have done anything to help her. But like she
would
was
be
open.
in a loveless marriage.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, dude. Like it's why I leave. It kind of ties back. I just saw a Cybertruck outside. That's pretty sweet. Sorry, dude, I got distracted.
Fucking like the not Neo. The cyberpunk future is coming, dude. You better get ready, get your fucking chainsaw arm and shit, dude. You know.
I love the cyberpunk shit, dude. Like it's some of my favorite stuff.
You're gonna love this, but look up Shadowrun. Like no one ever plays the fucking RPG, but you're gonna love all the cool shit in it. Like they have mutant octopi called incubi that like drink your blood and shit. They're really cool. Like I would just recommend it if you're a fan of sci-fi stuff, but also want that little bit of fantasy. Like are you a fan of Shell Shocked? Is it Shell Shocked or System Shock?
I'm not sure.
Have you ever heard of System Shock?
I have not. That's why System.
So they have like a. Oh, it's kind of like going on the idea like, oh, if he's a fan of this, he may like this too. But it's okay.
So I'll be.
System.
I was just gonna say, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, so I love video games and I play video games, but I get addicted to them very quickly. So I just like, I don't touch them anymore. It's one of those things where like, if I'm on, like I'm going to be playing for 14 hours or something like that. But I used to play a lot as a kid and now it's just like, I don't play as much. But anyway, continue. Like System Shock is the game that you ended up.
Well, I was just going to, I'm saying, it's more so like they kind of took like the idea from System Shock and said like, what if we applied this to our own like kind of like world? Mm-hmm. And this was like an older edition, but it's like, as a writer, right? Like I don't mean to like, jerk myself off,
Sometimes you got to, man. That's what I was doing this whole beginning, so you're good.
No. Well, I hope not. You know, no, I'm
not
kidding.
physically, mentally.
No. But I've been in that situation before. Like I fell asleep on like a microphone once, and there's this dude fucking whispering into my ear. It's like I woke up and I felt fucking like I felt creeped out, like, and I'm like, what the hell? What happened? Like this was a guy about my age, so I was like 19 or something. A lot of weird shit happened to me when I was 19. It's like the mystical number. But I was gonna say, like, you know, it comes to like, and I kind of told this one guy this when it came to like RPG stuff, because I think they're kind of synonymous when it comes to telling a story, because that's what you really want, unless you're like there to figuratively jerk off with your friends and say, oh, look at how goofy we are. You know, we've got all this silly shit going on. It's like a sandbox, which is another way you could play RPG stuff. But then, you know, I don't want you sitting there getting addicted, trying to like, I don't know, prison shake me because I'm playing. Say like you're sitting there and like you're kind of like comparing like this way like the writers kind of apply like different ideas to their own like modules, which is like, you know, pre-made stories. But then you also look at how writers kind of apply like you see all these like kind of deconstructions of superheroes or reconstructions where, oh my god, if we were talking about comic books, I'd be talking to you about this shit for hours. This is also why I want to be a writer, because like I have all this like fucking ideas, but it's like it's hard to kind of like put it on paper because there's all these different fears, which, you know, like, you know, it's a lot like within myself, like what if people hate this? What if like publicly people like lambast this, or like what if I get crucified, you know? And like the one fan I have is like, no, and then I get that guy crucified because he had the same ideas. I'm, you know, like I'm being like exaggeratory, you know, just to be silly, but it comes to these like ideas of like, and this is like the main thing, like for any writers, you know, like if you're looking at like your world, right? Your world has to like it doesn't have to be utopian, but like as a writer, I need my worlds to be like real, not like, you know, like it's cyberpunk where like everyone's a piece of shit to each other, or like a utopian world like like the slice of life comics where it's like, oh, everyone's friends with each other. But like I need it to have like some sort of problem for people to face, you know, and or like you would apply like a real issue from within that world that is possible. Like I like a friend of mine was telling me about how his world was like, oh, the players are like these demigods, not figuratively, like they're literal demigods who have to like kind of face a larger threat. And I'm thinking to myself, well, like, how would you apply that to a world like say you're making like a Falk's Greek story, right? You have Kratos, all that other shit, right? How would you apply like an invading force into that world? Would it be like have you ever read Thieves World?
Have not. The last I, I just
No,
read
go ahead.
Solo Leveling was the last one that I read, but like
You're
that's
gonna love it. It's a bit gritty, and there's a
mhm.
writer you're gonna learn to hate. Like like I say she, you're like, oh, what you hate women? No, I hate this specific writer, and she happens to be a woman. Because like, and this sucks because she makes like this character who's like a Gary Stew. At first, like when you read him, it's like it's kind of like a 180. It goes from like this gritty kind of realistic setting where it's like very Conan, you know, magic takes a toll on you. Like say you lost your arm, right? Like in D&D or whatever the fuck, right? You could heal that guy who lost his arm.
Mhm.
But like in this setting, like if you lost your arm, you could heal it back, but it takes a toll on you physically. Like you wouldn't just be, let's say you're like 40 or 30, right? Right, Weeb? Let's just
Mhm.
say you're 30.
Yeah.
Like to heal your arm, it would take 10 years off your life or some shit. Like you would like age significantly, or like 50, you'd end up 50 or 40, you know? You wouldn't like, this is like shit that like, that you would have to take great care of, or else you'd like you'd eat shit and die. Also, I guess like that guy was a sheep herder because he has to feed people too. Well,
So
you know, you're healing. You sorry,
I
go ahead.
want, I just want to circle back to something that you said earlier too. So like you want to be a writer and you want to post, like you want to do comic books. Like, have you posted, because you were giving, I've done this same scenario in my head of like, oh, what are people going to think? Like, how are these things going to be? Like, what's going to happen? Like, have you posted any of like your art or writing like online by any chance?
Hell no, no. I've never
Have,
left a trace of any of my writing. Never,
what's
nowhere.
what's the fear? Like, I know you kind of gave a little bit of that, like a little bit of background of like, oh, what are people going to think? But like, what would happen if like you did post it like under like an anonymous name, kind of like I've done with this channel too? Like there's no
Like a
correlation
ghost,
to me, you know?
like
Yeah.
a ghost name
Mm-hmm.
or a ghostwriter. Yeah. Oh, I don't know if it's a ghostwriter, but like, yeah, no, I get you. Uh,
Because like
there's
if
a
you,
specific.
I'm just thinking like if
Sorry.
you truly want to be a writer, like if that's the thing, like if you really want to make comic books, as frightening as it may be, and I've been here myself too. Like I've been posting content online for probably 7 years at this point in time, and like it's never gone anywhere. But it's just like, what happens? Like, what's so bad with you sharing these things? Like,
Well,
I've
it's not like it's like okay, this is more of a personal thing, but it's not that I'm afraid of like being like you know kind of being put down for it. It's more like if someone tells me the truth and says, "Hey, you know what? Like you're not," because I do think I want to be a writer. I
mm-hmm.
really do. But what if it turns out that like I don't want to be a writer, but more so I like the idea of being a writer. You get what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
you've more.
not.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's more of like you've created this whole like idea within your head of what it's gonna be like to be a writer, and now if it doesn't live up to your expectations, it's kind of like, well, crud. Like I
What was the
like
point
the
of that?
idea. Yeah, exactly. It's like I like the idea more than the actual implementation of being a writer or a content creator or a business owner or whatever it may be. Like that's why I essentially started this stream, dude, was because like I have had that exact same fear myself of like, what if this doesn't turn out the way that I see it in my head? But it's just like, wouldn't it be better to at least try it and fail? Like, and what
It,
happens if somebody does say that, like, this isn't like, oh, you're a crap writer or crap businessman or whatever it may be. But it's just like that ties
yeah,
back to
because
like,
like I could because like you could take it, I could take it being called a crappy writer because it's like, oh well, I don't like your writing, but like it's the idea that like I don't stick to my guns, I don't stick to the principles that I like kind of like put forth for like other people who I've read, you know, like again, I don't mean to like jerk myself off, but like I have so many weird fucking principles when it comes to writing,
you
but
got to.
like there's yeah, I guess. But like there's some people who I really absolutely hate when it comes to writing cuz like because not because because of the 180 shit that they do. But that's less of like the issue of like just, you know, fuck, what's the word? It's less of an issue of like me hating them and more so like what if I do the exact same shit that they do, you know? Like what if I like take a 180 or I like if I don't stick to what the story's idea was about, you know? Like I'll give you a controversial example.
Mm-hmm.
Like The Boys, right? I always saw it as the story about like, you know, you have this man who's dedicated to a war that like he was fighting for like no one. And he was fighting really for, well, not really for himself, but like for his like dead wife who he thought like, you know, he thought he was avenging. But
Mm-hmm.
when he realized that like it was all just a fucked up joke by like this other guy who was like fucking with him and the guy who he thought raped his wife, raped and well not murdered because like it was read The Boys, it's
Yeah.
fucked up, but like you know he it's like this guy he builds himself up to be like I'm gonna fucking take this guy down to like holy shit this guy was a victim of this shit too like we're like you know his whole view is so fucked up and it goes from like I need to take down specifically these like cut like employees who like beat up people in the streets to like I need to take out everybody, this is too dangerous for the world. And I've always thought it's like this story, you know, where like a guy goes from like 100 to 101 where like the guy he kind of brings up as like his like right hand man is like, hey, you gotta like sit down, dude. You got like you killed all of our friends. I've got to stop you. And, like I'm just kind of summarizing the fucking story. I'm
Of
so
course.
sorry,
No, dude, you're good. Keep going.
but like it becomes less of like the story of like oh this guy kind of like gets he's like Icarus. He goes all he flies too close to the sun and he ends up like crashing down on the ground on on like the cold hard pavement, you know, rather than the ocean. You know, instead of drowning, you know, he's sitting there, you know, realizing, holy shit, I've hurt people I loved because, and people who didn't deserve it because I never even thought to like look more into this shit.
But
Because
like,
at first, when we're introduced to it, sorry, go ahead.
no, you finish up and then I'll add on to that.
Like at first, we're introduced to him. He's like this character who has all the cards. But then, the plot twist is that he didn't have all the cards. He was a step behind this motherfucker the whole time. He raped his like right hand man, which is like a weird scene. Like the guy gets like sodomized, and it's not like it doesn't it's not graphic, but it's very like it's implied this guy like fucking did this out of nowhere. He disappears, and this dude is like stuck with this fucking trauma, and he's like, holy shit, did that just happen to me? Who the hell was that? This like the right hand man guy. And we're kind of left to think like, holy shit, like why did that happen? But then like as a I don't know where I was going with that. My point is like the idea that we're kind of shown with this story, and like that was my idea. But then like you kind of change it from that to like it was a story about how everyone's kind of a dickhead, but everyone's kind of cool, and then how everyone like it becomes just the average Joe story, rather than like a ballad of how like a pissed off guy kind of dug his own grave. He didn't just like piss off this community of people with costumes and shit. He pissed off like his like the people he worked with, pissed off like his best friend who and I feel like people have like how we're talking about like people have to have more of an open mind. People gotta I look at stories like this and I'm thinking I don't want to like I don't pay attention to the shock value stuff, right? I don't. I fucking skip past that. Like subconsciously, right? I read it, I'm like, okay, whatever. That's just Garth Ennis being Garth Ennis. He's a fucking weirdo, trying to point out how cruel like higher society is or whatever, because he's a he's a low down he's a London guy, he's a city guy, he's a city boy. But then like you see those like kind of like genuine character moments where it's like you see where a character breaks or where a character kind of like shines through. Like you have a character who like adverse to like the shonen anime protag stuff. We have Huey who believed and wanted to like help these like mentally disabled superheroes, right? It's not like he didn't get killed, but like he wanted to save them from this like fucked up individual. He got his shit kicked in, and it came in like that was the moment where we saw like his kind of like this older brother figure, or like the main character essentially say, you know what, fuck you, you're gonna fuck with my shit. I'm gonna put you down like the dog you are. And so you have this dude who's fucking cut up to shit, and the moment where it's like this guy's like in attack mode, right? You can't like at first you're thinking, oh, he's doing this to like because he cares about these like, and you kind of feel sympathetic for these like guys because they're like they don't know where they are. They're like little kids. They're like innocent people, and you see like one of them has Tourette's, and that fucking sets the character off, and you're like, oh, like what to expect. And in that kind of fear, you also see what like the guy's right hand man, Huey, he's like, look, don't do it. They're just kids. And you kind of like you're seeing it both from like Butcher's perspective, but also through like Huey's, or like I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant about this,
Dude,
but like
good.
I'm very into, or like you gotta. I'm sorry, man. I'm making you
Bro,
say this over and over again.
No, you're good, dude. Like I mean, just don't feel like when you're done, like I'll ask a question, I'll jump in. Like don't feel like you need to apologize for keep going. Like it's
or like Thieves World, right? I
Mhm.
was telling you about like ideas where you could like place these ideas from other stories into your own. Like writers have been doing this for like decades, centuries even. Like look at Dante's Inferno. He has characters from like Homer, or you have I forgot what the guy's name is. He's like this little Spaniard guy, but he has a story too where he talks about like or Portuguese. I don't know, Portuguese from Spain, but or is Portugal like a different country? I mean, it's probably a different country.
I think it's a different
terrible
country.
with geography.
I'm not sure.
But like you have the guy from Spain, right? He's he's telling this story, but he also has like ideas that harken back to like Homer, and not Dante, but like Homer, because he was the OG. People like kind of wanted to put his like those kind of scenarios within their own stories, and so we kind of see that happen with like these newer stories too. Like Garth Ennis being one of the two earliest guys who did this sort of shit, where they did the deconstruction. But we also see like people who want to reconstruct that, but instead kind of tell their own story of like I'll tell you, actually this is a really funny story writer wise. So a writer wanted to tell a deconstruction story, like, oh, this guy's not a really good superhero, he's just a piece of shit, to like this was a reconstruction. There was this guy who went through terrible shit. Like he was, I don't want to. It's very messed up. But he had this thing happen to him when he was younger, and growing up, he has to fight this Punisher, not Punisher guy, but this pseudo Punisher Robin Hood-esque character who really fucking hates rich people. Like if he thinks you're guilty of some kind, he'll fuck you up. Like even if you're a superhero, he's like, oh fuck you, you're a bastard. My point is for bringing that up is the story goes from oh, it's a deconstruction of how this guy thinks the world is good to you feel bad for this guy. You want to follow his story because he's willing to protect the person who fucking hurt him. And not everyone's gonna have the same kind of takeaway oh, that's so offensive to people who went through that. But it's also he is traumatized. He talks about this. He's so traumatized that he buries this shit behind his own brain. This is subconscious level memories. And then when he starts talking to his friend who's obviously traumatized, his friend's on 7 different kinds of drugs. He's this he's a part of a superhero prison where he's running all the systems, and he's also kind of hijacked into it. And he's I'm not taking the drugs because this shit is hurting me. I'm taking the drugs because of what happened to us. And he's what happened to us? And then I wish people I don't know how to word this. I just it's people gotta be have people you say, people gotta have more courage to tell these sort of stories, because some of them are gonna hit people in their feelings, or some of them are gonna make people say, I've gotta I know this situation is fucked up, but I've gotta not man up, but I've gotta try to be there for people who are in a fucked up situation. I can't just sit down. I don't know if you've been through a situation like that where you told me about the story where you were telling this girl hey, look, if your husband doesn't love you, just leave him. But I don't know if you've been in a situation where it was the inverse, where the woman was taking advantage of the guy, or
yes.
I don't.
So back when I was 18, man, that's actually exactly the first girl that I fell in love with, man. I loved this girl to death, lost my virginity to her, absolutely fantastic. But I lost myself to her. I lost myself to her.
You got lost in her. Yeah.
Yeah, I went into her negative mental health, and I lost my positivity and my negativity. And maybe this is the reason why I've wanted to share the stories that I have, is so that other people can avoid the same pitfalls and mistakes that I've made along my path. We all have our own intrinsic stories, and you're saying with Butcher and with Huey, they're both going off of the story that they themselves have been telling themselves the entire time. Along
These
with
are fictional characters, but yeah.
But it's even if they're fictional though, you got to think about it. Those fictional characters are based off of some sort of reality. They may not have the same extent, but they are based in reality. Same thing with all the shonen characters we watch too.
See, I agree with that. They could be based off the 2 different kind of mindsets the creator has, but we can never really analyze that with the TV series or whatever, because it's not held to the same candle, or not candle, not candle as in quality, but more so the same ideology that was made when going in. Compare a story that was made when someone was pissed off to a story somebody wanted to make about corporate espionage, military shit, but also a story of a guy wanting to get revenge for someone he deeply loved. Right? We wouldn't be getting that same story. It's honestly, I've never watched The Boys. I've never gotten a chance, but I'm never gonna watch it. I'm never gonna watch the Amazon series, but I imagine it's good.
I enjoyed it. I watched The Boys from the Amazon series, but the thing that I was wondering was do you not like that when artists and writers do that 180, where they give that whole different perspective? Because doesn't it also?
Oh no, that's not a 180. I could give you an example specifically with Garth Ennis. He has a guy who works with him, and it goes from this horror story where you're facing these Lovecraftian gods who control these unstoppable zombies. And I mean unstoppable, I mean they you put a bullet through their brain, they're still going. You put several holes in them, they keep going. I'm talking about pothole sized holes, right? They'll still keep running at you. To a story where this evil witch of a woman, this evil witch, she was she was a sex trafficker. She killed these what do you call the people who were Coast Guard? Yeah, she killed these Coast Guard who were trying to save these trafficked women and stuff. She was all in this, and she's and then the third part, and this is like more my personal gripe, because I always see this with this motherfucker. Like whenever it's horror, he turns into some like, and I don't mean shonen protag stuff like as an insult.
Mm-hmm.
I mean I kind of do, because it goes from like this horror story to like, look, this woman is like cutting like these zombies in half, and I'm not saying that we should be shown some fucked up shit. I'm saying that like keep to the fucking tone, you know, like. Like, okay, let me give you an example, right? There's two stories where you have like a female character who's like in a vulnerable position, right?
Mm-hmm.
One story is the biker and the hippie, right? Where you have this biker and hippie, they have two different like reasons for like traveling the world, and the world's fucked up. Like you have all these like cannibalistic, infected people running around, but they like, you know, at first they fucking hate each other because they have like these different ideologies. But then later on, as you kind of go through the story, you're like, oh, I can see how they're similar in their own ways, how they have like all this trauma and shit. One character wants to get revenge, and in a weird way, because they kind of like share themselves with each other, they also share like what they want, the goals that they wanted. Like the hippie, instead of being like a coward, like the reason why he was looking for the super drug to like get him super high was because he let his wife and like son die to these like zombie guys. He was like, and he's like disgusted with himself for that. So he's like, I need to find this drug to help me like escape. And then you have this other guy who like wants to find this like infected version of this biker gang leader who killed his like gang and like did all this terrible shit to them. He's like, I need to find this guy to kill him and hunt him down. But instead, they, you know, in a weird way, they kind of save each other. I guess like poetically, one guy gets to like kind of like make amends with like himself by like killing the guy who this other guy was looking for. He was able to become like define bravery, where, you know, there was, you know, he could have ran away and be a coward, or and like not or and like the biker is able to find like a peacefulness in his last moments by like taking the super drug, and while he's like drugged out of his mind, he's like getting ripped apart and stuff, and he's not even like conscious of it. Like he's getting his like throat ripped out and all this, but like it's I think I like to read it like that. And then you have this poor woman who like went with them, and you know, while she had safety in this one specific area, it goes to complete shit, and trying to escape from like safety in this terrible area, she finds, well, hell. it's pretty like they're very like descriptive
Mm-hmm.
about like the ending, but it's like like they don't tell you like, oh, they like do all this terrible shit to her, but they're like, she went to go find her cousins to like hide away with them. Instead, she found hell, and it's this like terrible series, but it's like it's horror, and it like kind of keeps you on your toes. Are these guys really gonna make it? Are these guys really gonna find peace, or are they gonna be able to find the peace that they are looking for, that they need? And then you have this one motherfucker write a story where it's like rage bait. It's like, oh, everybody who reads this shit is gonna be like it's a serial rapist who hates like nuance. It's like, that's not nuance. Like they should, like everyone, like even though like like I'm not arguing for like any I'm not arguing for any hate or whatever, but like everyone in that comic book fucking story, and I need to give you context. So in the story, right, you have these people in the middle of the cities, and you know how in a lot of like zombie media, cities are very dangerous because of all the zombies and shit. So imagine if the zombies were like intelligent enough to like shoot guns at you, or like break down wall windows or whatever, or at least remember that you walked into a building, right?
Yeah.
You have these people sealed up for like I can only guess months, right? Like right after the infection, they're still in the middle of this fucking city. They're screaming their fucking heads off about really shitty comics, and they're raping this poor woman in the back of their store. It's terrible, and we're just supposed to believe like this is even like a possible situation, and I'm not I'm not a fan of it, because like it doesn't keep in tone to like how dangerous the fucking zombies were, you know, but also because like it was obviously made for rage bait. It wasn't like this idea where it's like, oh, and I'm not asking for like some terrible thing to happen to the poor to this poor victim. I'm asking for like this. Okay, to give you context, this I don't know why I'm still talking about this comic. God, I'm so sorry.
It's got you going, man. It's something that you're like, I don't like this.
This man, this specific man, this writer, he is my he's my white whale, you know, and I should have had the stupid fucking quote prepared, and I would have been like, oh, you damned hippie, like, but nah, I'm not clever enough for that.
Well, you didn't expect this coming along, but it's also like when you think about it too, like if you know that these things aren't working in that specific writing and you don't like those concepts, couldn't you just make sure that you don't do those exact same concepts in your writing? Like you've already been able to identify the things that you don't enjoy. So just make sure that like you're aware of it now. So like when it would
But like
happen.
that's the thing. Like how do I know that I start to steer off course from what I originally wanted to create?
Well,
Because it could be like let me give you an example, right? I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
but,
you're good.
Have you ever heard about the comic book lookism?
Mm-mm.
Not comic book, but the webcomic lookism?
No, lookism is what it's called?
Lookism, yep. So it starts off as this story like, oh, this guy gets a beautiful new body. He's this disgust well, like
he's a fat guy first.
Words.
Yeah.
He's an ugly little fat guy, He like and he's like he's a terrible little guy, like to his mother, but like as the story goes on, you start to understand like, well, the guy already told what he wanted to say. Like people are a lot more this is the guy's writing. Like I'm not gonna like argue for it because I don't want to be like stabbed in the heart or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you have this guy who like talked about lookism at first, the title of the series, but then he goes into like a whole nother idea where he doesn't start talking about lookism, but rather like the corruption within like, within different like areas of like media, like like J-pop stuff, right? Or not J-pop, but like
K-pop
idols or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it could be anything. It could be anything. Like VTubers. They okay. So the thing about VTubers, pop idols, and all this other shit, they all have to like look available. And he kind of tackles that idea. Like, why do they have to do this? It's because they have stalkers. They have all these other things kind of like going after them and stuff. And well, the stalkers are kind of like attracted to that because they're like, oh, this person seems available and stuff, even though they could be dating someone secretly because if they don't look available, they become less enticing to fans in a way. And I'm not saying that's from my perspective, but that's how like the managerial like kind of like they're different what are they called? Not incorporations, but what are they called?
For like VTuber, I'm not sure what exactly.
Not VTubers, but like specifically, but like I don't know, like someone who you listen to, but you have to dress up in like you have to dress up like a pop idol and be like, okay, I'll listen to you, boss. And that guy works for another guy, so it's like managers, I guess.
Yeah. I'm like, that was what I was thinking was managers or influencers or like corporate structures or something like that. I'm not exactly sure the exact word.
Like you know what? I'm sorry. Like I'm like kind of like talking about all this like stuff. That's like not like sorry because like I'm more sorry because like I just like kind of steered off course from like self-help to more like I really hate other writers. Not other writers. I hate like.
So I wouldn't say that this is steered off from self-help. This is the exact things that I myself have gone through as well too. Because it's basically you're just internalizing it. Well, not internalizing. You're verbalizing all those thoughts and ideas that you've had in your head prior and like getting them out. And like, I mean, it's a healthy thing to do as well too. Like being able to vent and be like, oh, these are all the things that are happening. But it's also like, I've been guilty of this. Is like, oh, look at all these things and look at what all these other people are doing. But it still does tie back to what we were talking about at the beginning is like, at the end of the day, it's our responsibility or our choice to make this decision or not make this decision. So it's like, we can talk about how all these other people and condemn them for their writing and their styles and whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, dude, like they're the ones that are like, they're putting it out there. They're having the courage to be disliked and to be discouraged. And like, if you think about it too, like the writing that they have done, like clearly it's made an impact on you too. Like you have all the stories to say about this specific writing and the way that they've done it. But like, I also hear you providing solutions too. I haven't actually
put anything out there.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So it's like, if you're able to put something out there, like even if it's bad, like the lookism one too, like, as you were talking about, like how it changed from like people looking a certain way to now it's a whole societal metaphor.
I was giving like two different like examples of I understand where you're coming from, saying like you should put stuff out there if you're willing to be if you're willing to like be angry at this sort of stuff. But like that's what I'm saying. Like the two differences are instead of like quickly changing the tone from like a horror to like I don't know like she magically wishes all the zombies away. I'm serious. That's how like the one horror comic ends. It's
What's
like,
that?
you
What's
have
that
these
comic called?
Stitched. It is. Oh my god, it's fucked up. Like not
STIT.
fucked up.
Stitched. Is
Hmm.
it a web comic or just a comic?
It is a comic, and if you want, I can send you a free site. Just be careful. Use ad block, honestly, because
I mean
there's
that.
like ads out. Sorry.
I was just gonna say that's what I did with Solo Leveling. Like I read that as well too, like on a free website. Not saying it's the
Oh,
best
base.
thing, but like
Oh yeah, no, I read that before. I actually got into it because I got invited to a. I don't mean to steer. I'm not gonna like get off course.
it's
Like
never off
Lookism
course.
did it in like Lookism kind of like did it in a way where it made sense. You know, you went from this idea of like, oh, like it wasn't just this one aspect of society that was scuffed. It was all these others. You know, the way we kind of view these influencers, and you know, they still kind of tackle it back later on, but more so of like how people become like this sort of like prisoner to like their bosses. Not like, I mean, they do it literally within the comic, but you could see it as like potentially like a figurative thing where become people as they become like more and more popular, they start to become like chained down by like the people who actually pay them, the people who like use all these like advertisements and stuff and say, hey, you better keep your mouth shut or else you know you're not going to get your money.
Well, like that's the great part about being like a creator in the beginning or sharing like your writing or your aspirations, your ideas, whatever it may be, is like you don't have to conform to any sort of like social construct. Like you don't have to conform to what your audience wants. Like you get to create and write whatever you want. And like that's the hard part because now these K-pop people, the VTubers, like the other writers like Stitched or like people that write these comics is like they have this idea that originally
Oh
started.
no, it was different writer for like no. The reason why I didn't like that comic was because it wasn't that it was the same writer either. It was like a different guy. He went in and he's like, okay, let me change this to a happier ending. It's like I would have been okay if it was a sad ending. If like poor Kiryu over here who's trying to fight the Yakuza gets like decimated by like I don't know by the Yakuza, or he gets like enslaved by the Yakuza, or not the Yakuza, but like this cult, like, and I keep bringing up like it's Lovecraftian because like you have this like elder god that's unseen who obviously exists because like there's a weird embalming fluid that's like, oh my god, it's not fun, but like I mean it's fun if you want to like explore horror, right? But um, God, like a different writer, like the guy jumped in last second for the final comic and it just did a 180. And that was my only issue with the guy. Like he keeps jumping into these like different series that like Garth works on. It's like, oh, okay, I guess it's like it's one of those comics now. You son of a bitch.
Well, it's also
my sorry, go
it
ahead.
does also kind of tie back to though like what you were saying earlier was like how Huey and Butcher from the Boys from the comic that you read, like they were both going off of their own perspective and their own story. Same thing with what you were talking about too, is like how the one writer from Stitch, like it started out with like you would have been happy with the sad ending, but then a new writer came in and decided to write it from like their perspective. So it's like they're using the stories based off of what they themselves know. Sure, they can go off of like everything that was written up prior to them, but like at the end of the day, it's like it's their choice to decide how the story ends. Like they aren't the original writer, they aren't the original creator. Like I can think of Apple. I don't know if you're an Apple user at all or not, but like Steve Jobs, like Apple has never been like the same. They haven't had the same innovation since Jobs passed. Like they've still been able to keep the company successful clearly, but like they haven't created like any mind altering like device or like story or like product that altered the way that the future is like Steve Jobs did. But like people were able to add on to what they did. So that's why when like I think and hear that like you're a writer, dude, is like you can start writing, you can post it, like even if it's not even posting anywhere. Like you have all these ideas in your head and clearly like you're an intellectual dude that's able to like come up with massive ideas and write certain things. It's just a matter of like sitting down and physically doing those. Like I know I've distracted myself multiple times, countless times, like by watching anime or like jumping onto like my phone and scrolling Instagram or TikTok or watching shorts or like doing all these things to avoid doing the physical work because I don't want to have that discomfort because what if it doesn't turn out the way that I see it in my head? But it's like, wouldn't it be better to at least get it out on paper and like try it? And like, what if it's like, well, I'll run out of ideas and the story won't go the way that I want it to. And then it's like, now I have this whole disaster
Then it'll
of
just
things.
happen because then it'll just happen where I do run up. Yeah.
And it also like it forms organically. Like I like to think of One Piece. Like you've watched One Piece, maybe not, but it's like there's 1,000 episodes.
I've heard good
out
things about it.
Yeah, but like there's 1,000 episodes. Do you think that the writer Oda, when he first originally created that story, was thinking like, oh, this is gonna last 1,000 episodes? Or does it tie back to what you were saying earlier too, is like we got to start where we are right now. Like start in the present moment. Don't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. Don't worry about what's going to happen 5 years. Don't worry about if World War III is going on the outside of the world. Like let's just focus on what we have right in front of us right now and do that work today. Like I can't worry about what everybody else is doing. All I can do is worry about like, can I write? Can I put something down on paper? Because like I've come to realize that from me trying and testing things, like I've done fulfillment by Amazon, I've tried multiple different ways to make money drop shipping, like I've tried SMA companies, like I've tried all these different things to be able to create wealth. But it's just like I had to try those things compared to me just like mentally masturbating within my own mind. I still do that from time to time. I'm getting better at it, but it comes back to that awareness that I was talking about earlier too. Where like once you have that awareness of like what you don't want to do, now all of a sudden you're more aware and cognizant of like when people are doing certain things or people aren't doing the right things or whatever it may be. Because then at least you can start to progress with the story and like with Lookism and with Stitch and like with all these other artists that you've read.
I like the Lookism comic because like the guy stuck to his guns. He okay. Well, I mean, I guess you could say that about the other writer too in a weird way. Like they stuck to his guns too.
They stick to their guns while they're doing the things that they themselves have to do. But it's just like, you have to be willing to put like your art and your work out there. Like, even if it's not because like you say you think that you want to be an artist, like writer, like you have that as an inherent like desire of yours. But it's like, and you also said something about like, oh, I should do this. But it's like, you don't have to do anything. Like, it's up to you on whether or not you want to. Like, I mean, you can keep staying where you're at. I'm not saying that you have to change and completely like write a whole comic book in a night or something like that. But like, what if first thing in the morning you just did like you just wrote down, like spent 5 minutes just writing, not even 5 pages, but like just spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the morning, like just looking at a blank sheet of paper or something like that. Like don't look at your phone, don't have any other distractions, don't have a video game queued up or something like that. Just like have a piece of paper and be like, okay, can I sit here for 5 minutes and just stare at this piece of paper? Like I have a feeling you'll probably write something because clearly like with the amount of stuff that I've said and that you've said, like we have these thoughts and ideas in our head. It's just a matter of getting them down on a paper. You don't have to share it with anybody. If you want to share it with me, you can share it with me, but like you don't have to. But like I've just come to find out that it's so much better to like go try something and test it to see whether or not that this is something that I want to pursue more or something that I don't want to pursue more. Like if you go back,
be careful. I'm gonna send you like a whole like paper.
Bro, by all means, please do, dude. Like, I'd love to see that. Like, I'd love to read it. I'd love reading. Like, I've read other like projects and papers and other things that other people have. Like, it might not necessarily like I might not be your audience per se, but at least like you can send it over to me.
I mean, like I
you know,
like the way with what I was like kind of hoping to write like down the line. It's like, and it sounds very pompous, and I have to clarify. It's not that I don't like it when a character, like a person tells a story that like differentiates from what it started with or like how a story was like, you know, also I think it was like blabbering on because I was like, I'm like high off energy drinks right now. But like, like it's not that. It's like to make the comparison between Lookism and, you know, the guy kind of jumping in, writing these like little stories. It's not that they're the same in my eyes. It's, one was willing to kind of like keep up with the tone of how like the story was going. You know, it's this story about like there are people in bad situations. You know, sometimes came and fix them. They can't fix them, but you know you have to try to at least keep pushing. And if you just let it just go by like that, if you just let it go by like that, you don't really get anything out of it. Just sort of you lose. But then you have to compare it, and then well, again, like I can't really get my mind off the tone and stuff because like there were different ways the guy could have like done a happy ending or like sticking with like, because the way it's written, right? It's not like supposed to be this Greek thing. It's like 2010, you know. It's the Iraq War just happened, and they like, I don't know, like that's the whole setting, right? It's 2010s. It's not like Greek. He's not fighting a demigod or whatever, or like. This like the most evil bitch in the world says I'm an innocent woman. It's like, what are you innocent of? Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of writing issues I find within that specific comic compared to like a story that like it's the inconsistency that's I don't like as a writer. You know, like it's like say we were having this conversation. You know, like I don't know, person to person. You know, like you were like I don't know, we were hanging out talking on a bus, like or like a public bus. We were talking about this shit. It's like I don't know. Maybe that's a personal thing where I'm not hoping for something to be like 100% like consistent. Like, oh, this guy was an asshole in this one comic, then the next he's like super nice. What the hell? Like, I want to see something kind of like evolve on its own, like because there was obviously like potential within like Stitched, right? There was
Hmm.
potential for like, and you know the guy does like what's the word? The guy does like rework on like Stitch. You know, there's like a sequel comic worked on a different writer, thank God, where you have like oh, I don't want to spoil it. It's pretty good, but you have this like you have a different writer who actually tackles it and kind of sticks to its gun. You don't have any magical terrorist women who like are blessed not and I mean terrorist as in like not the Iraqi stuff, but like I mean she was evil. Like she was like slitting throats and like selling like and sex trafficking people. Like that is like I don't know. I feel like that's pretty evil to call evil, right? Like
Yeah, I'd say so. But it's like if you see these aspects within like within Stitched, like you know what doesn't work. Could you not do that? Like, could you? And I know I may be repeating myself, but like, isn't that something that you could make sure that you avoid in the process? Like when you're writing, like I know,
oh no
like
no, like I was just I got lost in my like own tangent, but yeah, no, I'm just making an example of like what the only differences between but like the reason why I like Lookism, like and why I don't like something like Stitched or the older Stitch series. Like
mhm.
with the creator, he sticks with like he wants to commentate on like society, you know, like he obviously has like a I mean, he's a bit more of an optimist, you know, but he has this kind of like argument on like not good versus evil, but more like people who are willing to like try to be good compared to people who are trying to not trying to be bad, but like people who just kind of say fuck it, you know. Let's get our criminal on or something like that. Let's get our you know, like let's just like let fuck the other guy, you know. We got to make money to keep on living the best life we can. You know,
Mhm.
which kind of goes back to earlier on where like we were talking about uh like the difference between responsibility and power, you know, like with
Yeah.
great power comes great responsibility, Parker.
Yep.
No,
It's true.
like because not everyone who has a lot of like power within society will use it like responsibly. Like
But
they'll like you know like and there's not much else I can say on that specific thing.
well, that also
Like
ties back to like it's just comes down to the person. Like it comes back to like what the person's inherent
exactly,
values are and what they have been the stories that they've been telling themselves of what they believe
and
to be possible.
I agree with that, and that's why I mean compared to lookism, that's I mean I'm not saying that I get all my moral answers from a comic I read when I was 17. God forbid, you know, I'm like 22 now.
I mean, nothing
It's
wrong
like
with that, dude. Like, I mean, you know,
it's a comic made for teenagers. I'm a grown ass man now.
dude, we're all just kids, bro. Like, I'm still a kid at 28. Like, I have no idea 22. Like, we're all still figuring out, and whatever like resonates with you, like that's the thing that sticks with you. Like, I've
I
taken
mean,
lessons from One Piece as a child, where it's just like you always have to introduce yourself first before asking for somebody's name, regardless of how lonely you are in your life and how afraid you may be. Like there's always somebody out there that's going to be willing to be your friend. Like there's all
yeah,
these lessons that are applicable in these writings, and it's just like sometimes people need the stories from like say either an anime or writing a comic, like a video game or something like that, because like sure they might not be based in like reality, but like who says like that reality is a reality for you? Like that story resonated with yourself to be able to help you have that type of like outcome and look on life. Like it came into your view to be like, okay, well lookism, like I don't know much about lookism, but like if I think about it, it's just like people can look a certain way and they can be treated a certain way. Like all social media does is present like the most attractive people, the most good looking people, the fittest people, the healthiest people, depending on where
that's
you're
good.
at, which is good. But it also
Yeah,
like it decreases like
no, no,
the
no. I'm
average
saying like
person's value, you
it
know?
shows like someone who's like very handsome, very good. Actually, that's one of the earlier comics or one of the earlier arcs that would happen. So earlier on within the series, you have this very handsome counselor guy, right? You have a bunch of high schoolers go into this kind of like camp, right? And you have this very handsome, very like beautiful looking guy versus like this very ugly, very short looking guy. But then at like you know all this shit happens, right? Where everyone thinks that the short, ugly looking guy is like this rapist or something. And then they're like, oh, well, this big, tall, handsome guy, like, I have a crush on him, says one of the high school girls. Then later on in the comic, you know, she's like getting cornered by this guy, and her boyfriend comes and tries to kick his ass. And the only reason why the guy had enough time to like stop this other dude was because like the short, fat, ugly guy was like, hey, look, like, leave her alone. She's just a kid. And and it kind of like, I don't, it's hard to say, like, it resonated with me a bit because it's like, well, it's not like those moments of power where like someone rich has all this power where they're able to control something, but more so like in those moments where we see something bad going on, right? And we're like incapable of stopping it because again, like this guy's short. He's like well, also he's weaker than the guy who's like this fucking terrible piece of shit, right? He's weaker than him physically, but he's still willing to like. I mean, you can compare it to a superhero comic too. Like I don't know. I was about to get super emotional about it,
Dude, I
but
get
it's like
emotional about that
it's
stuff
those
all the
moments.
time, man. Like, there's those moments where, like, the cowardly person has the courage to step up and go take that adventure, like, to step
Or
into the
not even
discomfort, like,
like
so my example is like, so like with Deku. So like in episode one, I don't know if you've watched My Hero, but like he has no powers and yet he stands up against like the enemy that's trying to take Bakugo down, and I'm like, that resonates with me because he had the courage when nobody else had the courage to step out. Like all these other people that had powers didn't have powers. Like they decided to stay back, whereas Deku, like he was the one that decided to run in when he had no power, when he had nothing else, but like something within him just compelled him to move forward. And that's the thing that like keeps me moving. It's just like regardless of how big the enemy is in front of me, regardless of how powerful that person may be or perceived to be, like I'm gonna be Deku. I'm gonna be the one that's just gonna run forward and like take this lesson that I learned from this anime and apply that to my own actual life, because like clearly there's something that resonates with me. And I was talking about this in a different video that I have coming up that I've scheduled, where it's just like that's the one reason why My Hero sticks with me so much, is because he had the courage when nobody else had the courage to move forward. And it's incredibly challenging because I face this in my own life, dude, where it's just like I am doing things that other people will think is absolutely crazy and insane. But like to me, like this is what a hero does. This is what a character does. This is what somebody that like has the courage to step out and be disliked does. They stand up in the face of adversity regardless of the people around them.
I completely agree with that. Uh, I I I feel like I'm being very nitpicky now,
Hey,
but like the reason I
we
like
need
that
that.
part. The reason why I like that part in that webcomic isn't because like he's like this weaker guy trying to well, it's not just that, but it also like he's this guy who's kind of like stepped on by like society. Like you have all these kids fucking call him this ugly this ugly freaky dude, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
whole time he's like trying to you know what, this is actually one of the sweeter moments in this comic, right? The very end, like you know, like everyone, like all the guys in that room are like fucked up. The main character comes in, he sees like this guy holding on to his girlfriend, his fucking hands are like kind of not broken, but they're like bleeding. And you see these two other like counselors, like the fat guy's like on the floor, his mouth is fucked up because he got fucking like you know uppercutted to hell by the other guy. And then you have like the handsome guy, he's like on the floor and his fucking like face is like mashed in because you know this dude was trying to save his girlfriend. And at the very end, and I like this where this guy like everyone's calling saying, oh, he's obviously the fucking rapist, look at him, he's like ugly. And the guy, he looks at him, he's like, hey, you guys fuck off, right? This guy, he's cool, leave him alone. And okay, that's very specific. I mean, like it's happy because even though society kind of and I want, and this kind of ties back into the kind of story I want to tell. Even though society's like kind of cruel to a person, right, or kind of like put someone down, like someone will still try to find the strength to do good, you know. And I constantly worry about this idea being too cheesy or I don't know, too goofy,
I
because
don't
like
I don't see it that way at all, man. It's more of just like that's the benefits of being human. Like, and this is why I like psychology and influence and studying these things, is because it really just takes that one crazy person to be able to want to stand up to that other person, because everybody else, like, let's say a car breaks down on the side of the road. Most people are just going to drive by because they're like, oh, the next person's going to get this. The next person's going to get this. But like when you say that, like there's that one person that's getting picked on, that's getting bullied. Like, are you going to be the one that just walks by and observes as everybody else is? Or are you going to have the courage to kind of like try and step up and stand up for yourself? And maybe you'll get hit, maybe you'll get punched, maybe you'll get beat up, but like that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like that's the thing that needed to happen. And that's why I like these stories, and why it's like if you could convey these stories in your writings too, dude, like I could see it having a massive impact on a lot of people. And even if it's not on a lot of people, it could be on a single person. Like that's, I feel like, the big thing. Like if you can cultivate courage within somebody to go do something that they originally didn't think they could do because the bully, the enemy, the dragon that's standing in front of them was too frightening, and yet you gave them the courage through some of the words that you had, like you said you were from the story that you read, like that's impactful. Like clearly it stuck from you, and somebody was just like you that was probably having these own self-doubts, these own self-criticisms of like, oh, I can't do this, but then they decided that it's just like, you know what, I'll give it a try. Like, why not? Like, what's the worst that'll happen? Like, I write, nobody sees it. Like, that's the great part about being new, dude, is like only you're probably going to see it at first, but then like maybe somebody will pick it up and it'll change their life. And I just like that perspective. It gives me hope for like humanity, for society. It's what I keep holding on to. It's the thing that maybe has been a detriment, but I don't see it that way. But it's the thing that I'm like, if one person can do this, kind of like I was saying earlier, then anybody can do it. They just had the courage to stand up against the bully when nobody else did.
You're gonna like this. There's a movie. I don't know if it's called The Bear, but there's a scene where I'm sorry, I'm like super autistic. I mean that literally too, because I've got a little bit of autism in me.
My buddies joke around with that with me all the time. They're like, "You're autistic." I'm like, "Yeah, maybe. Who knows?" But maybe we're all autistic.
Yeah, true. But like, there's a scene where like this guy, and this is actually kind of like a very like, and I guess it kind of like carries on into the human. Like people make a, I'm not gonna like side tangent aside, you know, that I was about to go into. There's a very beautiful scene in this movie where the whole time this guy is like hallucinating that his friend is still alive, and like, or it could be his actual ghost, but he's hallucinating that his friend is like, hey, you've got to like, we got to go kill the bear, you know, what any other man can do, and like another man can do, and he's like repeating it with him, you know, he's kind of like not threatening him, but he's kind of like pushing him to do it, like you got to do this. And then after he kills this bear that like mauled everybody else, you know, he's sitting there and he realizes his friend was already dead the whole time. You know, he was just sitting there and he had to push himself to like survive. And I think there's like a lot like these stories, the reason they speak out to like, I don't know if it speaks to everybody, but a lot of these people who are trying to find like strength to keep going. Because let's be fair here, life isn't always going to be, not is going to be, but life wasn't always like great, you know. People aren't gonna like, people haven't like been nice to everybody. People are kind of dicks to each other, you know. Like,
yep.
I mean, shit, you're like a newer person like on the web, or like, I don't know, a newer name on the web, like people are gonna think you're crazy. I mean, shit, like you said before, people think you're crazy, but you know, I again, like, I'd hang out with you. I don't know,
I'd hang out with you too, man.
Like, I don't know about gaming with you. Like, I'd have to like get a taser. Like, get the fuck off the game, bro. Like,
yeah, dude. This is why I don't play video games. I'm like, I get too sucked into them. So it's just like, but nah, dude. I'd chat with you. I mean, clearly we've been chatting for the past 2 hours. So there's something that
for a while, yeah,
resonates with like both of us, and it's a good, dude. Like it's fantastic. It's just like, it's a matter of like understanding that like what you have and what I have and what like every person has within themselves is valuable to somebody else. It's just we tell these stories of our past experiences of like when we were hurt or just traumatized or just scolded for like trying to be like our true authentic selves. So then we lock that person away and we're afraid to be criticized again because we're worried of like what will happen.
Now, for context, I don't actually believe there was a guy who was out there being chased by a giant bear and he had to like be taught by the power of his like dead friend to
didn't you
survive.
Well, like, so this is a whole, I'll just open it, but we don't have to go down that route. But it's just like, how do we know that anything that you have actually seen is truly like it's not just all happening within your head? But like, how do you know that? Like, what if that friend?
Oh shit!
You know what I'm saying?
No. Oh. I get what you mean. Like, it could be that like, oh, I thought you were going like a whole nother route. Like, what if like all these negative, like all these hopeful things aren't just like your mind making it up, but what if it's also reality? Like that friend who could be a hallucination, he was actually just like there trying to save his friend, you know? Yeah, shit, dude. Fuck. I don't know. Like, I mean, there's a big thing with me, right? Like, I'm not gonna say I'm afraid, but like I watch a lot of like really goofy fucking drama videos on YouTube, and it's just like I see a lot of people not just catch flack for like kind of being unique, but like, you know, people kind of like being thrown under their bus because they're like, well, he's an easy target, you know, that guy's crazy, so obviously he becomes an easier target. And I'm not going to say that's always the circumstance because they're all really fucked up people online, but I don't know. Like, I'm scared that if I were to come out with like a interesting story, someone would kind of look at me and say, hey, that motherfucker right there, he's the devil. You put him the fuck down. You put that man down right now. Like,
but do you believe that about yourself?
No.
So then, does it
No, I don't.
matter whether or not somebody says that or not?
I mean, it's it's not that it matters. I mean, it does matter to me, obviously, but it's also like what what if like that kind of hope I kind of gave that like the hope you were talking about before, like what
Mm-hmm.
if the hope that that one kid or one like kind of guy who's kind of going through shit got from like my story, not like my personal story, but like through a story I wanted to write.
Mm-hmm.
What if he's like disheartened, he sees like a dark like there's something disgusting within like that story, like, oh, he wasn't trying to like help me, he wasn't trying to tell the story, he was trying to like do all this fucked up shit on the side. It's like I'm not worried about like my personhood. It's more like about like the hope, or not hope. God, that sounds like so facetious.
Hey, that's
The
okay.
hope I can.
But like,
Like
go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So like, well, what if that one person that does come through and does listen to that, because you also can't get into the head of their own thinking. It still ties back to like Butcher and Huey. Like they were going off of their own stories that they had themselves. You and I, we go off the own stories that we tell ourselves. So like, you don't know what impact your writing is going to have. Like you could have the nihilistic view that like, oh, he's going to think that I'm the devil and whatever. Like he's going to take this wrong outlook. But it's like, if we think about it, like you can't get into the mind of that said person. Like you don't know what's going to happen afterwards. Like I'm thinking of it's messed up, but like, so maybe not messed up, but like, so there's an episode of Rick and Morty that I recently watched and have you watched much Rick and Morty by any chance at all?
I watch it, yeah.
Okay. Do you remember the episode where Rick's like he a private pooper by any chance?
Oh yeah, like he goes out there and he just
Yeah,
like,
and he poops all by himself, and then he finds the other dude that's on his toilet type of thing.
yeah.
Yeah. So like I look at that story and I see like the dude that is like trying to become Rick's friends, and when Rick finds out that like, okay, I want to be friends with this guy that's pooping on my toilet, as weird as it may be, but it's just like when he finds out that I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but when he finally
I
goes
think
out,
his name was Gene.
Yeah.
I remember that episode. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
so when he finally like confronts Rick and he's like, you lock all these people away so that they don't have to bother you, and he's like, we'll be friends, and it's just like, no, whatever. But like from that instant, then he goes off and he goes and lives his own life, and sure, he dies in the process and he gets killed, but like he stopped working that dead end job that he didn't like doing, and he decided to go ski and like chase after his dreams, and sure, he lost himself, like he lost his life, but at the end of the day, like he finally did something that was fulfilling to him instead of what everybody else thought he needed to do. At least that's the outlook that I took from that story, and why it's like when
Base
Rick,
Mount Everest.
yeah, exactly. Like when he,
Why? My question is like, why couldn't they like make up like some goofy sci-fi name like Space? I don't know, like Mount Planet or whatever the fuck. I don't know. I like Rick and Morty.
I do too. Like there's a lot of underlying concepts, and don't you think that maybe the same artists, like the creators, Dan Harmon and I can't think of the other guy off the top of my head.
Yeah, that guy.
But like,
well, I mean, it's not just those two. There's other writers too. Because I remember like a big thing that Harmon was talking to. I forgot his name too. Justin Roiland.
There we go.
Like the thing, just like he was like, hey, look, we have all these writers. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to work. We could just like, we could just own the IP. Like we could go like step into some meetings, and like we don't have to put in any work. This could just be our franchise. And the guy threw it away by doing all that fucked up shit. And my point is that like there's a lot of writers putting their own stuff into like some stories. I don't know who's like always the head writer for each story, because I think they always credit like Harmon and Roiland. But I don't know. Looking at those stories, it's like you could see like someone had like had a fun time talking about like, I don't know, like the making all those cop references. And what was that one with like the Citadel? With,
oh
like,
yeah, was that the one where
with
the crows? Rick has
Day.
crows. Yeah.
No, it was Training Day, where like, well, no, there was like a there was like a parody of Training Day where you had like a embittered 14-year-old like fat Morty who's like Rick, like this is how we lose a lot of Ricks like you, naive punks like you. Yeah, no. Instead of like this embittered like older guy who's lived in the shittier part of town, it's like this 14-year-old kid who's like, and I like how it's like it's funny, but then when you take away take away the idea that it's Rick and Morty, you have this kind of like, this kind of sadder story that's I guess still Training Day, but instead of like the same value that Training Day had, it was instead like you have this cop trying to be good, but then all he kind of sees is like people just. I guess it's actually just Training Day. I was trying to get like a deeper message out of it, but it's just Training Day. Like that's like like the movie's about like, oh, there's like racial prejudice within training, like within the movie, and he's being trained by this black cop. But then when you actually look at the comic, like not the comic, but you look at the movie itself too, it's also like it has a huge theme of like how prejudice could be both within like cops, but also like when we it could be a bias both like as an individual but also as a cop, where like so like the guy being trained, right? He's like the only reason he's able to like pass as like a guy just trying to buy drugs, and it's because of himself, because he actually survives getting like his shit like rocked, or getting his he almost gets his fucking like hands cut off, but like he talks, he's like, hey, where'd you get this wallet? He's like, oh, I got this from like this girl, you know, who's getting raped. I saved her from getting raped. And he's like, really? I don't believe you. And he goes to call his cousin, and it's like his younger cousin, this like high school girl. He's like, hey, is this true? Like, how's your day today? She's like, oh, yeah, I almost got jumped by these fucking homeless guys, but like this cop came out of nowhere and kicked their asses. And he's like, oh, okay. And then like he looks at this guy and he's like, and what I'm trying to say is like it's his own morals that kind of save him. It wasn't that like it wasn't the like the words of like the guy who was training him, this like very racist black cop who like hated like everybody, who was like not hated everybody, but who's like a piece of shit. He was a corrupt cop. And I mean, I guess you could say the same for like, I guess well, I don't know, like the movie's very like it's very modern, you know, like even now it's made like in the 90s or 80s, and it's still like it still kind of keeps up with like how like the world works. Not it doesn't even have to just apply to like the police force. It could apply to different like places too. Like, well, not that specific scene where like I don't know, like where you have like your arms tied up behind you and like you're being held captive by like a cartel member, and you're being told, hey, where'd you get my cousin's wallet from? Fucking Weeb Afton, where'd you get it from?
I mean, it's true like, when you think about it, though, man. Like everybody's going off of their own prejudices. Thank you.
You know, don't worry.
Words are hard for me sometimes, bro.
It's all good. I'm an English major. I got you.
Yes, yeah. And I just wrote papers, and I was a comm major, mass comm. So I get communication, but I do it more like in a written terms, like spoken terms, I guess I should say. But yeah, it's interesting. But it's just like we all have these stories, and we all have these prejudices. Whatever.
And we also have these biases are prejudices, but like, well, I mean, not entirely. Like a bias could be positive too. Like, oh, I have a lot of good experiences playing with people who are like into anime and shit, right? But I have a lot of bad experiences playing with Swedish people. Like that's an example I could give. I don't have anything against the Swedish. I'm just like, that's a very specific example. And like that's how prejudices and biases work. Someone could have like a very silly bias about something that doesn't really matter. Or they could have like, I don't know. How would you word it?
Well, I mean, that's why you gotta like look at your own perspectives and your own beliefs, as we were talking about earlier too. Like you got to be willing to like.
Yeah, but but that comes into the fact that like, is someone self-aware enough to like identify that they're biased or prejudiced towards something? You know, like,
yeah.
Because like in Training Day, right? The guy isn't like, I mean, the guy's aware that he's like being a piece of shit to these guys, but he's not like aware on why he's being like prejudiced towards like these like criminals. Is it because he likes, you know, he looks down on people who aren't like within his situation, or is it because, you know, they aren't him? So, you know, he wants to take advantage of like the situation, say, hey, this guy tried to fuck with me, I'm gonna plant some drugs on him, I'm gonna kick his ass, and I'm gonna say that he tried to assault me.
So that's the tough part. Like you never know what that past person has gone through. Like you only get to see people at face value. Like I'm only seeing you today. Like you're only seeing me today. But like there's all these other experiences that have never been shared. But it's like the only
and Lord, I forgot his name already. Poor guy. But like Lord something, right? Like Lord Rixer. Like I've you know, like all. Nah, I'm joking. I don't know the guy, but I would drink a beer with him too. I mean, he seems cool. As long as you're down with the not sickness. What was that really good song? Fuck.
I've never been a big music guy, so like I've only just recently gotten into it. But I'm not sure off the top
Really?
of my head. Yeah, no, I've always like I would listen to people speak. Like I listen to podcasts or like keynotes or like lectures or like weird.
Like you've never listened to music before,
Like I just
or
never
like
have been a big music fan. Basically, like I listen to it from time to time, but like I was telling you earlier,
okay.
like when I sit at home and I work, like I don't have music playing. Like it's complete silence. Like when I'm sitting at home meditating, or if I'm just going on a bike ride, like complete silence
Yeah.
99% of the time.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I just like that. I guess that feels like very new to me because I haven't really heard of somebody. Sorry,
No,
I
you're
haven't
good.
really heard of someone doing that before. Like just kind of like sitting down, relaxing, and doing their own thing. Because you know what?
It's,
This is actually kind of funny. I was supposed to talk to somebody at like 12.
mm-hmm.
I just was supposed to be like a quick, I have to talk to you a little bit. I was supposed to have an appointment with this person, and we were gonna go over like tabletop shit, right?
Yeah.
Uh, completely fucking. I think she like died, not literally, but I think like she just like said like she like she can't talk until like 7. Poor her, but whatever. Um, God, but yeah, no, I've had a good time talking to you.
Yeah, likewise, dude. I feel like we can probably wrap it up here. I could keep going for another 2 hours, but I'm starting to get a little depleted and hungry. So I'm like,
No,
unless
you do you, man. I don't want to like hold you captive,
no, you're not holding me
Uh,
captive. If I needed to go, like I was gonna go. I wanted to chat, so like this is perfect. Got to have a nice chat with you, and hopefully maybe I'll get to see some of your writing here soon. Like I mean, it'd be pretty sweet if you're like, hey, like I actually ended up writing
yeah,
something and sat
I
down and did something.
I hope I didn't like I hope I didn't like just like the tangents weren't too annoying. I hope they weren't like they didn't kill you, not kill you. I hope they didn't fuck you up. Like I hope me getting to tangents weren't like too annoying for you.
No, dude.
Is what I'm trying to say.
So this is what I'm trying, and this is what I try and convey too. Like people think that like what they say is annoying, but I'm like to me like it's not annoying. Like I find this stuff fascinating. I find it interesting. I love getting to hear like what you have to say in your stories and like how you relate like certain aspects from certain like whatever it may be. Like I just this is things that I enjoy. People may think like, oh, I'm being annoying, but like to me, dude, like this is where I find joy and fulfillment and happiness is being able to like listen and be this person and like hopefully maybe challenge an idea or ask a question or maybe give you a different perspective or connect some dots that maybe you didn't originally have connected. Because like my main thing and intention of what I like to do when I have conversations is one, maybe just listen, and two, hopefully maybe inspire or give you some hope to like go actually try something that you weren't originally doing, because there are other people that are interested in the things that you have to say. It's just sometimes you need that one listening ear, because too often we do that comparison game where we see people online having hundreds of thousands of views, where it's just like, for all we know, like this conversation could lead to something bigger. It could lead to absolutely nothing. But there's something that was compelling me. And like when we think about it too, that person that you had to meet with at 12, there's probably a reason why she didn't end up having to meet, because we needed to have this conversation more than having that tabletop conversation. I'm not saying that one's more valuable than the other.
No. Like,
You
trust
know?
me. Like, the tabletop conversation was not going to be interesting. It's going to be like, you have the ability to take this and do this, but like, yeah, no, I think this was, and not to. I mean, fuck, fuck it. I'll give in to the madness. I like to think like, maybe it was like, maybe it was destined. We were supposed to talk about this stuff. Maybe it'll lead to something better, or maybe it'll lead to like a greater conversation on like the nature of like art and how like and how willing people are to like not just convey art, but just kind of like put like their soul into it, because that's, or like, fuck, like, I'm not gonna like, I don't want it to sound like a little bit like but it's not simpy, because you're not a chick.
Nope.
I
Straight
think
heterosexual male right here. 100%, 90, and 100%. I was going to say 99. No, 100%. Like, I don't know where the 99
yeah,
came
like
from,
you're
but
not
yeah.
like you're not a chick. I'm not simping for you, but like, I mean, shit, like you give me some like something to think about, like when I'm like sitting there work like writing for a paper or whatever, instead of like me just sitting there like my thumb up my ass, playing
Mm-hmm.
games. Like, why don't I tell the story I really want to tell? Like, but
Yeah.
like, I don't I don't trust myself to tell like a very happy story either, because it's like
Doesn't have to.
I don't like.
It's your story. You tell it how you want to. Like, there's no right way. Like, I had never even heard of Training Day before, like, talking with you. Like, that's a show that I've never heard of. I'd never heard of, like,
Oh, it's a great movie.
Stitch.
I'd recommend it. Maybe like there
I'm
could be
gonna
like
have
a
to look
movie
it
night,
now. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch it now. But like, I'd never heard of Stitched or like, um, why can't I think of the name of the other one? Lookism. Like I had never
Cross.
heard of these other ones. Like,
Oh, okay.
but like these were just stories that like they didn't exist in my reality. And but like
Yeah.
having this conversation with you, it's just like these other things exist, but like I didn't know this. So it's like with your writing, with the stuff that you consume, like might as well share it. And it ties back to what you were talking about earlier too, like about how like the universe will kind of like conspire, like will help you in certain ways. Like it may test you certain times over and over again, but there are going to be certain points in our life where it's just like, maybe this is what I'm here to do. Like I'm here just to help you out, to help you get writing, because maybe like the writing that you have, for all we know, like what if that story, if it's happy or sad or gory or like terrifying or whatever it is, like what happens if that story is a story that like reaches hundreds of millions of people? Like I don't think people from Solo Leveling or Stitch or like any of these like successful movies or writings or stories or whatever ever imagined like it having the impact that it did. But like they had to have somebody such as myself come in and be like, hey, you know what, Sleepy, like the stuff that you have to say, like you don't have to conquer the whole world or climb the whole mountain, but what you can do is you can just start by writing one page. Like you can commit to a page. I have no doubt that you can commit to a page like a day. Like even if it's not a full page, I have no doubt in my mind that you can't commit to half a page. And if you can't even do half a page, you can do a quarter of a page. If you can't even do a quarter of a page, you can do at least one sentence. Like if you can't even do a sentence, I know you can write down a word. If you can't even write down a word, bro, you can at least write a letter on a piece of paper.
Or have the
like,
yeah.
Just
no,
at least,
I get what you mean.
You
like,
know,
try to like keep on like. No, I get what you mean though. Like oh my god, I don't mean to drag this on.
No, you're good.
Like,
I'd rather wrap this part up first before we finalize it. I don't want to leave any bows untied, you know?
I guess that's fair. But yeah, no, that's a good way to look at it too. Not the not the finalization, you know, because everything keeps going on. I like to believe there's an afterlife, but not like heaven or hell. Just like it is, you know.
I
Like
believe
life,
that
it
we
just
keep
is.
coming back over and over again. Like I believe more in like reincarnation type of stuff. So it's
I
more
like to think like on our deathbeds, we look up and then we see Truck-kun just looming over us as the. No, you get it, though, you weeby bastard.
Yeah, bro. Like I've never like I always wanted to. This was an aspect to myself that I always wanted to like shy away from because I got bullied and picked on for like watching anime as a kid. And it was always a thing that I did by myself. But luckily, I had a friend that came into my life during COVID where he was like a big weeb. Like he was all into the anime type of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, hey, it's cool. Like there's this other community out there that does that. But I wanted to tie like the self-development along with the anime because I know that like if I just sit at home watching anime, I feel very empty and like I just don't feel very accomplished. Like the best accomplishments and feelings that I've ever had in my life is when I complete something challenging or I do something difficult. And that's always been the great part and why I started off this lecture of like, or a conversation live stream, whatever it is, was like how I was able to like make X amount of money was because it wasn't the money, it was the hard work that I put in that led up to the money. Like it was the daily work that I had done every single day. And like I'll also be honest with you, dude, like I had one person give me a $10 donation from the YouTube videos that I've been making on this channel. And I've been making these videos for the past 10 years. Like I don't have, like there's no monetary gain for me doing these channels or having these conversations. It's more of like, can I help impact one person? Can I help change somebody's life in the way that my life has changed?
Yeah. Like I don't know how to word it, but I agree with that. God, I've been just giving you very general like replies. Like I don't think anyone's. Well, I mean, if people do think that, you know, that's just how a lot of people think. And I know what you're referring to, like when I was talking about like how people think, you know, like Mr. Beast wants to help because I mean, like everyone, like it's hard for people to look at something and because as I said before, people are very nihilistic. Mm-hmm. Not like, you know, they think the world is going to end or that, you know, nobody will ever love them, but more so like, or not nihilistic, but people are very cynical when they hear someone wants to help. You know, you get. I mean, you do have genuine people
out of it.
Or yeah, because some people are like that. They say, "I just want to help," when you know they're taking advantage of a situation. I'm not saying you are, but there are people who are like that. But then you have people who genuinely want to help, and you know, I think there are people like that all over the spectrum. Just like how there's people who want to take advantage of a situation all over the spectrum too.
It's also like. It still does come back to like that own other person's perspective on whether or not because like what I'm doing right now, somebody may think that this is transactional, but then somebody else can be like, no, he's genuinely trying to help this. Like I'm genuinely trying to help Sleeping, but somebody would be like, why would somebody give up 9 hours or 3 hours of their day to like just have a conversation with somebody that he doesn't get anything out of it? But it's just like, I like thinking I do these things regardless, either on camera or not on camera, whatever it may be. Like I do these all the time because I never know. Like I've had people that have said certain things to me that have like completely transformed my life, and they may not even think that it was a big thing to them. But like to me, like me having a conversation with you or somebody else, like that can be the thing that completely changes their life around. And why I always like having conversations with people, because like you never know how much your words or your writing or your videos or your concepts or your ideas can completely help somebody out of like a negative internal experience that they're having within their own mind. And I just like being able to provide that type of value to other people that didn't originally have those types of things. Sure, it's terrifying and it's frightening, but it's also like, why not do the good that we can do right now, even if nothing comes of it? Like there's people that I watch online where like they just provide free value, free value, free value. But then maybe one day somebody's like, hey, I'd like to help you out. Like I'd like to have this thing happen to you or whatever it may be. But it takes courage to have the willingness and the guts to be able to go off and do that said thing when everybody else in all of society has told you that this is the thing to stay away from.
Or like try to fix your own life too. Because I mean, I this didn't happen to me personally, but I have a friend of mine, right? She's actually this is actually gonna have this does have to do with like what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's trans, you know, her like I don't know if it's her grandfather or her father. We haven't talked in a good minute. But they fucking hated her, right? Because you know they don't really like trans people. Like it sounds very like there are situations like that, and you know she had to move out, but because she didn't have anywhere to go, you know she just kept on walking and walking. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was from what I hear, like she said, it was a pretty shitty journey. But I mean, like I think you know you could apply that to a lot of stuff too, like not just like because not the trans part, but more so like having to like because you're in such a shitty situation. If you really want to evolve, you have to like just keep on pushing.
Yeah.
And
Regardless
like
of
you can
the
find
amount of people that are telling you to
yeah,
stop or stay still or whatever it may be. Like, so like, I was kind of talking about this at the beginning too, is like, I go on runs, and when I go on these runs, these bike rides or these walks, whatever it may be, like, sometimes that's all I'm doing. Like, I've had meditations too, where like, it's literally me just walking. Like, there's no money, there's no monetary, there's no friends, there's no family, there's no girls, like, there's nothing. It's literally me just walking just to walk. And that's the thing that I feel like a lot of people neglect is like, we always want to get to the top of the mountain. Like we always want to be at the top of Space Everest or Mount Everest or whatever it may be, but we don't want to put in
face
like,
Everest.
I had to throw that in there. But we don't
No,
want
that's
to
good.
like take those necessary steps to be able to get to the top. We just want to have the success. Like you just want to be a successful writer without having to put in all the work. I say just want to be like a successful businessman, like or salesman or like YouTuber or whatever it may be, like without putting in the work. But like I have to pick up the phone calls, I have to post the videos, I have to have the conversations, I have to go out and like do these things that maybe it'll turn into something, but there's no guarantee that it will turn into something. All I can do is like focus on what I can do right now. Like I can water like the seed all I want. Like I can plant a peach tree. Like let's use Kung Fu Panda. Like I can plant that seed, but there's no guarantee that that seed is ever going to grow. I can water as
Yeah,
much as I want to, but like regardless of what it turns into or if it does grow, like there's no guarantee. But I'd rather just toss out as many seeds as I possibly can, and whatever ones do ripen are going to be the ones that I want to use. But like sometimes we have to take down those negative seeds and plants that we planted in the past because we weren't aware of those things. But it takes time. It takes like constant effort and constant fulfillment and constant struggle and constant walking and people telling us like, oh, you can't do this, you can't make it, like it's not going to happen. Like all these other people have tried, but like you're going to be the one that doesn't make it. But it's just like, well, who says? Like I'm trying. Like at least I'm doing something. And some people will support you, other people won't support you. But like at the end of the day, dude, like you're the one that gets to decide on whether or not you're gonna write or you're not gonna write, or you're gonna post or you're not gonna post. Like the outcomes are gonna stay the same. Like if you like where you're living and how your life is at right now, then by all means keep doing the exact same thing. I just know that me when I was in my early
but if you want
20s,
to keep on like, but if you want to get out of that shitty situation and like
you have
kind
to
of
change it. Like
get to that better place, yeah, you gotta.
nothing changes unless nothing changes. Like I had to give up anime, like at least binge watching anime and movies and TV shows and video games and all the things that I loved for 3 years. A little bit longer than that, but like around 3 years or so. And I would just give myself like every now and then I binge watch a show on Netflix, or I'd watch like My Hero every Saturday morning or something like that. But I knew I had to give short-term sacrifice for long-term growth. And not a lot of people are willing to make that trade because they want it now. But me, I was like, I'm happy to wait. Like I have no problem waiting to set up myself for the rest of my life. If I have to sacrifice playing a video game or watching an anime or a TV show, like those things are still going to be around. But my youth and my
Yeah,
time as like a young 20-year-old, like that's not always going to be the case. So I like taking that different perspective on like having these different like ways of like living life that I found to be more meaningful.
that's I mean, shit, yeah. I mean, that's a good way to look at it too. Like I'm not like overwhelmed by it. It's more like I don't know how to respond in a way that would like that would express how the like I guess the gratitude I feel because like you just kind of pulled me on and said, hey, let's talk about like this sort of shit, and it's like, yeah, no, I'm down because like I let out some of my like let out some of my like my like tangents and shit, but I also kind of like I talk to you about real shit, like my real worries and stuff. I mean, that's not all my worries, but like
But at
um
least you got some
it,
of them out, and we were able to kind of work through a certain amount of them. Which I mean, that's the
yeah,
main thing. Like,
yeah.
it's not about tactically. Like, we can't eat the whole elephant in one bite. Like, becoming strong, like getting muscles or whatever it may be. Sorry, one
I've
second.
never heard that saying before.
Oh, which one?
Eat the whole elephant. I've never like I'm not saying like oh, dude, I do feel your like not pain, but like I've been in that situation. Nobody knew what the term "shoot the shit" was, and they keep saying "shoot the breeze." It's like shoot the wind. I mean, shoot the breeze is not a saying. Shoot the shit is a saying. That like where are you getting this shit from? Like not that it's an actual issue. It's just I I think it's kind of like I don't know. It's interesting talking with people across the interwebs. Like we learn more about newer people and newer ideas because like I'm gonna be real with you. Like I never really would have gotten the idea to like kind of look at something like made by I don't know what the fuck the writer's name is, and I still dislike him as a story writer. But I mean, it's a way to look at it. Like he didn't really want to like stick to like he had the power to change what was happening in the story, and you could say that for a lot of writers too. Like I'll always have my principles for like that specific thing, but I mean, he wanted a happier ending where people kind of got out of it good. Everyone else kind of got screwed over by like making these figurative deals with the devil or literal. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if that was the devil, but I mean, they were a cult literally like that, like worshipped evil. So but it wasn't like cartoony, like, oh, haha, we're evil. It's more like it was, it's like, I don't know how to word it. I'll tell you one of these days, like how I kind of perceive it. Like, but you see these like kind of, but like I like it where it's like through these cycles of abuse, this one individual is able to like break out of it because he gets like some outside help from this woman who was also a part of that cycle because in the previous one like I they like stuff her in a barrel and they're like, hey, look, you're gonna like become the fluid that like makes all the zombie people, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no real like and that's why I hate it because it's like there's no real like because happens all the time. There's no like change in their expression. This is like a Tuesday for them. They stuff random women into barrels, to become the fluid that like not empowers, but like raises these evil zombies, these evil dead, if you will. And I mean, at first, like I'm looking at it like very straightforward, like, oh, this doesn't stick to the stories, but instead, like, I mean, the guy's kind of putting his own heart into it. I mean, even if like he doesn't write like perfect one-to-one stories. I mean, okay, what I was trying to say before was like you remind me of a good friend of mine that I've lost contact with a while ago, named Vic. He's well, not not the Vic from all the drama and shit, but
Mm-hmm.
he's a good buddy of mine, about your age, I think, or 30 something. But he's a good dude, and I guess like, and I don't know if he's like if he'd ever see this video or whatever, but like if like he's a cool dude, and I think like he would subscribe to like some of the stuff you have to say because like he's a neat too. So like he's my homie, my neat homie.
Yeah.
Shout out to my boy Vic. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, for all we know, what if like this is the crazy stuff, and I mean, it's a little bit more crazy than most other people may think, but it's just like, what if I am Vic? Like, what if I am the Vic that you needed to have, but I'm just in a different body right now? Like,
I mean, the dude's like about your age. So I mean, he did give me like a sort of like not like warmth, but like he gave me like a certain outlook on something that like it's similar to what you did, but instead of like how I should look more like inward on things I have to change, it's more like, well, there's a lot of things wrong with the situation that I was in. I was very unhealthy. I mean, I'm still very unhealthy. I haven't been working out in a while. I've been overeating and shit. But like there are things that we have to change within ourselves, but also we have to look outward and say, why do we want to change? You know, which is where I get some of my like kind of thoughts on like society on. Not like all of them. I'm not like a like you're not gonna see me like I don't know. I don't know. Like that's where I get some of my like anime knowledge from. He's a cool dude. I don't know.
I
I
appreciate
don't
that,
know.
man. But it,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I used to believe that too, that everything was like on the outside of us. But I've started to realize that it's like it's not so much. Like it's more of like, and this is why I love meditation and sitting with ourselves and like having that peace and quiet, and why I give so much of it, because it's just like all these ideas and thoughts have just been conditioned into us in some way, shape, or form, and it's a matter of being able to sort through those past experiences and those past like ideas and ideologies and beliefs or whatever it may be, to figure out what you truly believe in. Because like for you, maybe fitness isn't like, it's not your goal, it's not your priority. Whereas like for me, like it's always been, I just like being able to like go to the beach, take off my shirt or something like that, and like look like lean and have like muscles and be strong. But it's like that's my own internal like self-image that I have of myself. And I'm not saying one image is better than the other, but it's just like having that understanding. And I'm also just addicted. Like I changed one addiction for another. So like instead of being addicted to video games and like anime, I started to become addicted to like health and fitness. So it's just like I
Well,
fill one addiction with
that's
another,
a
you
good
know?
addiction though, sort of. Like I mean, there's definitely like overabundance of it. Because I have a buddy of mine who's like really into. Well, I mean, we don't talk as much as we used to, but like he was really into fitness and stuff, and like I mean, he's still doing good. I don't know what I was gonna say that was wrong, but because I don't know, I'm like very like finicky on what I was thinking, but it was very like silly, like the thing like that was fucking with him too. Like he would go to the gym, and he there was like equipment everywhere. Like you go like we would hang out, watch some like NCIS, and there's nothing but like fitness shit everywhere. Like
Mm-hmm.
oh okay, like we go out. It's like oh let's go to the gym. It's like okay bud, I don't really know what else to do now, but like yeah sure. I mean there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. Just nothing but fitness. And I
Yeah.
mean, I learned how to cook from the guy too. I mean, that's fun.
That's good, dude. Yeah, because like I mean, it also just comes down to like the goals. Like, what do you want out of life? Like, where, how would you like your life to be? Like in 5 years, in 2 years, in a week? Like, how do you want your life to be? Like, what perspectives do you have? Like, what ideas interest you? Like, understanding these types of questions have helped me out a lot, because it's just like I personally like, if I'm not in the gym or something like that, and if I'm not moving my body, I get in my head and I start scrolling social and I start doing all these negative things that like they aren't helping me get to the place that I want to get to, because it's
Like
like
you, yeah.
we are a
Like
character. Like our life and our world that we're in right now, dude. Like we are the main
that's the
character.
story.
Yeah, and we get
Yeah.
to decide the story. We get to decide the character. Like we get to decide what we want out of life. And like as you play video games, as I play video games, like we level up that character. We level up those certain stats and whatever it may be. So it's just like I wanted to level up certain stats and make my character, my individual person, the best that I could be for the things that I want to achieve in my life. So that's what
Yeah,
I set out to
damn
do.
well. You know damn well there's not always like a level up to the character. You know damn well.
I don't know. Like, what do you mean by that exactly? Like that
Well, I mean,
there's.
like for some, like I get what you mean through like progression of the character, but
Mhm.
some like I don't know, like as like games have taken more artistic. I'm not going to get into that, but like some games like they just sort of like there's a progression to them that's like not really individual, but more like just like I don't want to say societal, but like faction wise or like I guess group wise like you like I guess you could subscribe that to like a group of people who like care about one another like oh as you progress through a game you and that group of people could like progress to be better people and making yourselves better which I've seen for like other groups of people which like and like kind of like brought out a deep seated envy that is on I was gonna make like a really exaggeratory like joke like oh like a deep-seated envy, unbeknownst by man, that will one day be the ruin. No, like it's I don't know, like I get envious of groups, but like my point is that like it doesn't just have to be the individual that like progresses, it's like and like because what you said before with like how people kind of like want to, I like this is my own idea of it,
Mhm.
right? Like you don't always have to push people away, but you could kind of bring them back up with you, which I've tried to do with some people. I've tried to be like, hey, you know what? Like you don't have to like be so like you don't have to pick on yourself too much. But then they end up like I don't know, like trying to crucify like they try to crucify the person who like called them a dick. Like oh. You son of a bitch! Don't call me a dick.
Well, it's just also one of those things like you can't like I can't force anybody to change. I've tried my best to like
Or
force people to be like, hey, you need to start doing this thing, or like my life has changed so much from doing this. And I've just come to realize like it's better just to lead by example. Like regardless of what I
and
want to have happen, they won't make the change unless they inherently want to make the change. Like you won't start writing until you inherently decide that okay, I want to start writing. Like you won't start doing something. I won't like I didn't start working out until I looked in the mirror in college and I was like, oh, I got a small little gut, and I never had a gut beforehand. So it's like I need to go hit the gym, and then like it's just a habit that starts to build in. It's like, oh, I'm not having enough income coming in. It's like, all right, well now I need to start like having an income come in. And so like we all have these moments in our life that it's just like it's a pivotal changing point of whether or not like we're gonna make that change, but it's still too often we fall into this trap of like listening to what society says. We fall into this trap of like what our parents want us to do, what our friends want us to do, instead of like going off and doing our own
what
thing.
we want to do. Yeah.
Exactly. Because it's like
Or
we
like
don't want to be disliked or have to be like that the girl that you're talking about earlier that was trans, that like she was just walking forever. Like that's all she would do because she didn't have that community, that tribe, those people around her
I mean,
that
no,
were
she
able to
like she
support her.
eventually found that like haven. Well, not
She did.
haven per
But like
se.
she had to be
Like
on her
she.
own for a certain period of time before she got to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing for like you and I. Like we have to be on our own before we get to that point. And in the meantime, when we're alone, like it's kind of a lonely journey. But it's also like the journey that shapes us into the people that we need to be. So that then like you can write more compelling stories, or you can inspire somebody else, or you can help somebody like along their journey and their path and help them avoid the shortcomings that maybe I made or you made or whatever it may be.
Or I guess better analyze like as a writer's way of thinking. I mean, like shit. Like I guess I don't know. It's like an old, not old head, but like an old way of thinking for myself. Like, oh, I hate this guy because he made this all soft and squishy. Because that I'm not gonna lie, that was a product of like my own generation too. Always being like, oh, they've always make everything soft and squishy. But I mean, that was before that was before all the goofy shit. And I don't mean to hold you captive anymore. Like I only got one more question,
Yeah, shoot.
or not question, but more like one more
Statement.
like just asking for advice
Yeah,
or whatever.
by
But
all
like
means.
I have a friend who I care about, but like it's not like an abusive situation. He's not like getting abused by these people, but it's
Hmm.
like I look at the shit he plays with these people, and it's like, well, it's why is this better than what we do together as a group of people with our group of friends? Why is this specific like way of doing this better than what we did? Because there's no like more moral or like philosophical difference between the two. But like I don't know if I have to change and say, hey, I will go alongside with that. Like it sounds like I'm breaking up with a woman or breaking up with my girlfriend or something. Like, oh God, I I'm so sorry, baby. Like I don't want to do this. I mean, I'll do it with you if you really want. Oh my God, that sounds like a really fucked up like cucking scenario. Like I'll do it with you if you really want. Oh God. But like I don't want to do it because okay, like I'm not going to give any more context than
Hmm.
what I'm going to give, but like these people are a bit like condescending, not condescending to as an individual, but like, oh, our what we make is better than everything else of this like type. It's like to give you an example, it's like saying the guy who created like lookism is the best writer. No, there's definite flaws within his like writing.
Hmm.
He's not the best writer. He's definitely like more celebrated in Korea now. But like I wouldn't but like saying someone like him is the best writer, or like especially when like you're always like not changing stuff, but it's I can't look past that. And I want to hang out with my friends. I want to hang out with them more. I love them to death. I miss our old snarky conversations and shit, but like I can't look past that, like the way they phrased how the system works, especially past like the weakness of the system too. And yes, this is all RPG shit, but like, how do I look past that, like as an individual? Because I don't see any issues with the person who I do see issues with the person who made it. Obviously, like the
Hmm.
guy, it was the best thing in the world. Like it was better than any other system. And I think it's goofy to say that, but I also don't want to like I don't want to lose my friends. I've known these people for years, and we don't have any other issue besides this, and I'm worried that I'm going to push them away, by like just. I mean, to be fair, we were drifting apart, but it's like, do I want to keep on holding on? Am I that desperate for like, am I that desperate for companionship where I'm willing to like throw like kind of put away or am I being like too much of a prick and being like, hey, I'm not going to put away my own standards so that I'll play with you guys. This is below my standards, so I'll never play with you guys with this shit because I care about these
Of
guys. But
course.
like, I don't know which is the better option. Is it better to just like stay away from like what all three of them like, or is it better to like kind of get them all back together for like one last hoorah and see if like we could still stay together? And actually, just a funny little note.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to another guy. He's about 30 or something. He's a buddy of mine from Austria. We were talking about how like when you're looking for a group of friends or like a I don't know like a RPG group per se, because at the end of the day it's a social game. Like
Yeah.
anyone can say whatever the fuck they want. It's a social game. It doesn't have to be RPG. Uh, it's like looking. It's like looking for like a partner. I know that's really bad, but like the reason why I say that's like, and I guess RPGs are my favorite hobby because it has to do with writing. It has to
Yeah.
do with like what I like. But it's weird for me to put this out here. Like it's like looking for a partner. Like you have to be careful on like whether or not like you make them feel off or if you like make the group, and I say like replace group with girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
you'll definitely see how goofy it gets. Like or like say you get the group like really uncomfortable, and so you're like, hey, let's take a break. I'll do my own thing for a while. Or they like kind of say, hey, we're gonna end this for now, but then they go off to do their own thing. Like the group goes off to do their own thing, and it's like, oh god, this sucks. Or I mean, or you just don't like the group at all, but they're all friendly people. Like you really like them, but you can't like not stand them, but you just can't get along with them. And I guess you could apply that to like anything, like friend groups, whatever. But like, I feel like that's a me issue where I can't like not sink my teeth because that's very violent, and I've been giving very violent exaggeratory examples, but like I can't really like get like put my head around it. Like I can't wrap my head around like the idea of like a group of people who want to have me around. It's hard.
Yeah, dude. But it's
Like
also like this kind of ties down to like looking for an outcome for hoping that people are gonna look at you a certain way. It sounds like, whereas like you can't really determine what somebody says or how somebody is. I always have looked at it in terms of like if this person isn't helping me reach the goals that I'm wanting to achieve in my life, then I say farewell. If that means that I have to be alone, and even if I love the guys, like I am happy to be like, I'm sorry, dude. Like I can't have this. I can't have this type of energy or this type of person in my life right now. I wish you the best. Like I'm happy to bring you along with me, but if you're making me feel bad and ashamed for wanting to improve and do the things that I want to do, I wish you the best. But like that's my hard approach. Like not everybody has that approach because other people have been with other people, and like I don't know all the past that you guys have gone through, but I also look at it in terms of like sometimes you're hoping that these certain scenarios are going to play out in the same way that they once did. But like I can think back of like, oh, if I go on this same hike or if I go on the same bike ride or if I go to the same place, like the experience is never the same as it first was. Like when I watched Pulp Fiction for the first time, it was absolutely amazing. I loved it so much. When I watched it again, it was just like it didn't have that same impact, that same appeal. But it's just like too often I know personally, it's just like we get stuck in this like we want to keep going back to the exact same scenario and have the same feeling that we once did, but it's just like we grow as people. Like we grow, we have different interests, we find different people. Like after going to college or leaving high school or whatever it may be, like our interests change. At least mine did. I have a feeling yours have as well. So it's just like, sure, the people are great. And if you want to have one last hurrah and try, like, I mean, by all means, give that a go. Like there's nothing that's stopping you. Like, I mean, it's the same thing with you writing. You can either write or you can't write. You can either ask the question or you cannot ask the question. Like you can either let them go or not let them go. Like I don't know the outcome of what's going to happen. It's more of like, are you going to regret staying in the situation that you are at right now, or are you going to regret not trying it? I always like to live under the impression of like there's always going to be new people that come into my life. Like some people are here for a lifetime, some people aren't. And like I've always been the type of person where it's like if they aren't helping or moving in the same direction that I'm wanting to move, then I say farewell. It's nothing personal. It's just like I have big ambitious
that's
goals and
how
things
it
that I
is.
want to
Yeah.
achieve. Whereas like not everybody has the same ambitious goals and drive and like mentality, and maybe it's my autistic abilities that come out or whatever it may be, but it's just like it's my life, so I might as well do what I want to do regardless of what somebody else is thinking or what somebody else is behaving, or if they say certain things that I don't agree with. Like that's perfectly okay. I still wish them well and I wish them the best, but it's just like I have to look out for
Yeah.
me first, you know?
Okay. Like I mean, I could, yeah, I'll apply that. Shit, it was good talking to you. If you ever want to like have like, I don't know, if there's ever like, I don't know, discussion in server or whatever going on, I'll be around.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, you can always ping me
Yeah,
too. Like I look forward to seeing some of your writings, man. Like even if it's just
I'm
a
gonna.
paragraph or an artist or drawing or whatever it may be, I
Uh,
feel like that'd be
yeah.
sick to see. But I appreciate you chatting with me for so long, dude, and hopefully there was
I
some
mean, I like
information.
talking to people. It was fun, you know. It's I I'm stuttering like a motherfucker. I'm sorry. Uh, like, what kind of country is on?
Dude,
You
you're
get
good.
yeah yeah
I
no.
will leave you with this last thing too. Is just like think about like where did that idea come from of like you thinking that like certain things that you're saying is like being cucky or like being whatever it is, like whatever belief that you have, like ask yourself like where did this come from? Like is this mine or is this something that like somebody else and I found out from somebody else that if I do this certain thing I behave this certain way. Like I'd start to ask
Well,
yourself those types of questions as well.
I mean, that was more of like a silly joke because like you know how like I maybe it's because I have a really fucked up like literature like way of like the things I've read have just like fucked with me like traumatized me. I, in a weird way. It's hard to describe, but like I read something, I look at it, and it's like, oh god, this is gonna stick with me for a while. Like I don't know why, but like cuckoldry and like NTR shit has like been trauma. I'm not gonna keep you here. You have a nice night.
Yeah, you as well too. So I could keep chatting with you. I also just have to take a piss and eat some food. So like that's my main thing.
Go
That's
live, go survive.
I appreciate
Mission
it.
objective: survive.
I
Yeah, take
appreciate
care,
it, brother.
man.
Yeah,
Nice
you
talking to
too.
you.
Talk soon. Later.
Stay safe.
You
Yep.
too. Bye. All right, you guys. Well, that was absolutely wonderful. If you made it to this point in the video, like I love you. I appreciate you. And yeah, we'll keep seeing where this goes. Got another person I think that wants to talk here sometime soon. We'll see if he or she sends me a DM on Discord. If you guys ever want to chat like this too, more than happy to. Otherwise, hope you have a good rest of your day, and I think we'll end it right there. Because I need to eat some food, put some stuff in the crock pot, and also go to the bathroom. So, yeah, thanks for joining. That was what, 3 hours-ish? Wonderful.